There's a good video that some guy did as a project where he interviewed him during that time. And I think it was like in the dead room where, the walls are covered with material so that the sound doesn't bounce off. And the guy asks him, like, look, what is this material that you have on the walls? And then he just very like matter-of-factly just says, cloth.
Welcome to Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex. My name is Michael Mansour, and I'm joined, as always, by my hypnotic co-host, Alexander Volt. Say hello.
Hello.
This is Every Album Ever, the podcast where we listen to every single album in the world, one artist at a time, except when we decide to do something completely different, like this episode. Completely different. Alex, what are we doing today?
We're doing a memoriam / reflection personal journey with Steve Albini, if you will.
We recently, last week we covered Shellac, and before that we covered Rapeman, we covered Big Black. We've covered countless bands that Albini has worked on. We're big Albini fans. We have been devastated at the loss, and I thought, because we tend to focus on the music and on the albums. The Shellac episode was fucking 2 hours long. To focus on just the music took 2 hours. To focus on just Albini, we're going to take another 3. So I'm going to be talking without Alex, and I will be discussing, our favorite albums that he's worked on, not just his bands, but anything he's worked on, anything he's been a part of, anything about the guy. And then following this, I'm going to be talking to our history guy, Tom Osman. You should all go check out and follow. Anything you can imagine, he's done. He's touched so many.
Even Bush.
And that's even fucking shitty Bush. And getting all his insights, and then at the very end, him and love him. You wanted him back. My brother Robert, who introduced me to everything Steve Albini as a young boy, I talked with him.
His other trademark metal guitar picks. So the Pixies were using metal guitar picks on that album, apparently.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up because metal guitar picks. That's a thing that I don't know if you still use them, but I still sure should use them. And there's all kinds of great insights. It's a lot of heartfelt stories, some funny stuff. A lot of things you're probably not expecting. Albini had his hand in a lot of different pots, and it's pretty remarkable. And we've been affected deeply in both positive and very negative now that he's gone, which is, So we just covered Shellac. Do you have any postscript feelings about Shellac?
I think what I said on the episode holds true. I think I'm still more of a big Black fan if I had to do a Sophie's choice there, but just like great stuff on there. And like I kind of hinted on that episode, it's so interesting how this podcast has kind of been the most impactful Albini journey I've had so far in my life, because for some reason I was just content kind of admiring him from afar, or for his production / engineering, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't make the proper time to listen to his bands until this pod. Yeah,
you had the opposite, or sort of the opposite journey as me. I started with Big Black when I was 13, 14, probably 13, and was such a huge fan of the bands. Rapeman came shortly after, and then Shellac shortly after that, and then learned later that he recorded in utero, and then slowly started seeing him everywhere else. I think I was listening to the Jesus Lizard before realizing that he was like the Jesus Lizard guy. Check out episode of the Jesus Lizard.
I mean, even up until his death, like we reviewed the liturgies number
936
album and loved it, and then didn't realize it was Albini until the end of the year.
Yep. Had no idea. It's insane. He's just in everything. So it's been like a huge loss. There's so many things that I wanted to talk about and sort of remember things that always fascinated me. A lot of it I talked about with Robert and Tom. Things like his guitar tone, which we definitely talked about on this pod all the time. Like the elusive nature of it, how fucking just him and gear is a whole talk. So if you want to hear the gear talk, that's with Robert. He's the gear man, and it's pretty wild, interesting stories. I think one of his guitars is like in a museum right now because it's just crazy stuff. And then.
Also, if for some reason listeners have never looked up his fucking crazy guitar holster at the hips.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me because I keep forgetting about that. I love that. I love that.
I was reading about it and because I kind of could picture it, but then you look it up and you're like, what a fucking maniac.
So what he does is, instead of putting on the guitar with the strap,
the standard strap,
he gets a strap. He undoes one end of it, and then he wraps it around his waist, and then reattaches it. So it's a strap hooked up like a fucking like a
gun holster almost.
Basically, it's like a belt guitar.
Yeah,
and I remember. Maybe being a teenager and seeing like live footage or photos and being like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, what is he wearing? Like, where did he get that strap? Really, it's just a regular guitar strap wrapped around. And I think Santiago from Big Black also did the same thing with his guitar. And when I saw Shellac live in like 2014 or 2015 or not 20, what am I talking about? It was 2008. What the fuck am I talking about? 2007, 2008. Or maybe 2009. You know what? It was probably 2009. Whatever. Who cares? I saw him do it there. And that's when I realized, he's wrapping it around. I actually just watched him do it. But yeah, that's a fun little thing. I think I tried it once just to see. And you got to you got to make the strap super duper long, of course, because, for it to wrap around. And it's fine if you like it at that length or that height. Exactly. Because your hips are your hips. You're not going to raise your hips.
I bet you the guys in Korn would love it.
Fucking feel he's playing on the floor, basically.
Yeah. If I played guitar, I'd be a nerd. I'd be up here.
It's been a lifelong journey of me because I've been playing guitar since I was 4. I still am going through that journey, that process of figuring out.
Interesting.
If you go by the Dean Ween method that we talked about before, check out the episode on Ween. He says there's 2 camps. There's above the dick and below the dick. And I thought for years that I was a below the dick kind of guy, where I preferred it low because it felt more loose, but it was also hard to do leads. So I was like, I can't do solos if it's too low. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. The middle felt like a fucking nerd. I didn't want to do that either. If you do it too high, you look like stupid ass Tom Morello. He's fine. I don't dislike Tom Morello, but I've learned it depends on the guitar. So this guy right here, this was a gift from Robert actually, which was very kind of him. This guy, I wear that sumbitch real high. Real high. If it's too low, it looks like it's too big for my body and it looks ridiculous.
It does look huge.
Yeah. With super metal guitars, I have a Jackson Warrior. Those can go either way. I tend to like that one low. It's just, it shifts, baby. It shifts.
Just feel it out.
Yeah. Now I'm talking about fucking guitar straps. We're supposed to be fucking paying tribute to Steve Albini, and I'm talking about my guitar strap height.
He would want it.
I'll tell you what he would want, and it's the first thing on my list because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget it. Fuck Steely Dan, and that is what I want to pay tribute and love for Steve Albini. I mean, because the man has said a lot of controversial things. The man has done a lot of things. There's tons about him, about his stances that I don't agree with all kinds of things. But I loved his boldness, his willingness to say whatever he felt, his honesty, and none of them resonate with me more than his hatred of fucking Steely Dan.
He's round about that. And we talked about it. It's like on paper I get where he's coming from, but and I'm just kind of repeating myself here. I can't listen to Swans and say fuck Steel. It's almost the same mentality.
It is not. I'll tell you why it's not.
Well,
if you remember my argument,
I do remember it. But for people listening,
so the Steely Dan, the case for Steely Dan is they're insane perfectionists. They're immaculate. They'll go for fucking days straight without sleep, making sure every single thing is perfect. I personally don't give a shit how perfect an album sounds. I tend to not like how perfect an album sounds if it's too perfect. Mm-hmm. The difference between Swans, what I would say the difference is, Michael Gira isn't trying to make anything perfect. He's trying to get you to play what's in his head. It's not to be like, because there's like mistakes all over the place. There's messiness, there's rawness. It's not to be, no, it has to be clean and perfect. It's like, I want you to play what my soul is burning to get out. Otherwise, I'll kill myself.
It's kind of the same process.
It's similar, but I would say it's very different artistically.
It's the same process because you can't read that guy's mind. You can try.
You cannot. And believe me, he has made a lot of enemies with trying to get people to read his mind.
And I'm sure, Donald Fagen has also made just as many enemies.
And the best one was Steve Albini.
Oh man, I will say I saw someone say something about him where a lot of people get older and have some questionable views, but if the guy who started Rapeman can get older and just kind of accept people and be more open-minded, no one has any excuse if the guy who started Rapeman can do that.
I tend to disagree with him more as he got older because I think he went too hard with the apologies because we get, even if because I get why he's ashamed of the name, obviously. I get why David Sims, the bass player, is ashamed of the name. It's a fairly tasteless name, but we also get what he was trying to do, even if he was being an edgelord about it. Like, yeah, you explained it already. You don't got to keep fucking apologizing. We get it. You don't got to like overdo it. So in that sense, like, I don't think I think he didn't even need to do that much, because nobody, at least no one with a brain, thought he was this horrible, crazy, sexist, racist person when he was young, because he was never was. And it's just not the way people work. You don't start out as a monster and then become not a, you know what I mean. But yeah, so I think he, in his soul, was always consistent. That's what I would say.
Sure, yeah, but I this appreciate one of my heroes not pulling a Kanye. So I realize that's a very low bar, but for famous people, it tends to happen a lot.
Yeah, people fucking gave me all kinds of shit because I was calling him a psycho for saying he was a genius. Yeah, I don't believe that. I just don't believe anybody who says that.
Yeah, that's a different podcast. We're talking about Albini here, but yeah.
But yeah, so his hatred of Steely Dan made me personally happy, but that's not really the reason why we're honoring the man. So yeah, I guess we just talk about some of the albums that he played a part in, no matter how minor, even if it was like a couple tracks and he just did some recordings for that, he was still around. He still had some sort of influence. And yeah, I have a pretty sizable list here. We're not going to make it like a super massive thing, but it's just a little taking stock. We'll call it that.
Sure.
Would you like to start it off?
Yeah, I'll start it off with the biggest, most obvious one, and I don't care because it was my gateway into his work, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's gateway, is Nirvana's In Utero.
Of course, we got to start with the obvious.
It took me a few years after hearing it to properly appreciate noise rock, and I think maybe in a different set of circumstances it would have happened sooner. To me, In Utero is a noise rock album disguised as a pop rock album. It doesn't make any sense to have a huge album like Nevermind and then do In Utero. It's just it's bonkers, and something only someone with that much clout can pull off. And yeah, I just think Albini was the perfect guy for the job, who understood Nirvana and would probably just relate to them as human beings instead of, these huge rock stars they became. But yeah, things like Radio Friendly Unit Shifter and Tourette's, like I like loved those. I loved those songs before I even like got into more off-putting music. And obviously it's in Nirvana's DNA. Kurt and Dave and Chris. Listen to a bunch of cool bands that don't get it's in their DNA for sure. But I think having Albini there to like masterfully like record it in a way that sound like it's probably the best noise is ever gonna sound.
It's one of the best sounding albums of all time, and it's top 3, maybe top 2, I think, of my favorite sounding albums ever. Because the Albini sound, the Albini drum sound, of course. He was popular for a reason. People came to him from all over the world for a reason. He made it sound live. He made it sound like it was right next to you. There's something about that particular album. For one, it was my introduction as well. I've heard that album since I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, like too young to me even like really register it as enjoying music. That's how young I was. Mm-hmm. And so I can't really associate that with Steve Albini because it was too early. But even then there's a certain feeling of like comfort hearing just the opening seconds of Serve the Servants.
Oh man.
I mean, it opens with a drumstick count and then bong, and that one hit tells you immediately how good the album is going to sound, at least from a production standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. It's the first album that like I'm like, this is his sound, and made me even albums that aren't produced by him, like how ingrained his sound is to noise, to metal, punk. Like I think it's definitely a thing people chase in their production if they couldn't get him.
Yeah, certainly a good number of people do. I'm sure, obviously there's going to be naysayers with everything, but who gives a fuck about them? Yeah, there's if you don't want a really live, crisp sounding band, I get that. But if you do, I can't reasonably believe anybody who says they wouldn't prefer this type of sound. Mm-hmm. If you want the sound of a band, and you prefer like a more glossy sort of Nevermind sounding thing. Like, not that Nevermind sounds bad. It sounds amazing, but it's also a very cleaned up, shiny, highly produced thing. It doesn't sound, it sounds like a band. Yes, I get it. Sounds like, in my brain, a band is a group of dudes or a group of ladies, whatever, who gives a fuck? A group of people playing fucking right there, and it's blowing my hair back. That's what a band is in my spirit or something. So the better an album can capture that. I mean, it's just it's so like innate, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think especially as things become more digital and electronic, not that, I'm opposed to those things, but you just see so many people half-ass it now because they can throw it on loop or whatever live. And I think a rock band would seem more appealing these days, but I guess not. But I'm also 37 years old, so it's not a battle.
Give it time.
That's not a battle I want to part in anymore.
It'll come back around. Everything always does. And the thing is, things have gotten very, very digital, very loopy, like with, like you said, loopers and stuff. I've dabbled as well. It's not the same. You can get a set of fucking monitors or whatever, and crank it, and it'll beat your ass with this fucking drum machine or whatever. You can crank anything super loud.
Yeah.
That's not the point. It's not just loud. There's something about the intensity of someone smacking a fucking drum with a piece of wood that actually feels different.
Even Nine Inch Nails, one of the most electronic bands ever, they've got quite a few people performing live because Reznor understands that. It
just taps into something a little bit primal, because we started out as fucking hitting drums and shit. That's the first form of music. You think we're going to be done with that just because it's been a couple thousand years or whatever?
No, the drum is ingrained to everyone's soul almost.
And also a thing that we've talked a little bit about in the past where, yeah, we can do a lot of things with just one person now. Just plenty of amazing artists that are just on stage with a back line.
For smaller bands, people I totally understand it.
Totally get it. I've been that. I've had to do that setup. I get that. It's still, there's almost like a little bit of embarrassment that I have to it. It's like, I feel like I'm playing I know Tom mentioned at some point in the past to me, and I'm sure I mentioned it on the podcast, he likened it to it's a little bit like karaoke. Obviously it's much better. We're not going to demean solo artists, but it's a little bit of you are technically singing along to a song that's playing. And not that there's anything particularly wrong with that, but it also doesn't tap into it. It's hard to there's some artists who can do it, but it's hard to really let loose when everything is pre-planned, when everything is going to go exactly the way it was recorded. There's no you know what, we're just gonna fucking fuck around this one section for an extra minute just because, or we're gonna fuck up and then have to start again, little things like that maybe it doesn't sound like a good idea, but it's what makes it a little bit more of a human experience. I sound like an old man.
You're preaching to the choir, and I agree.
But In Ear to Roll is a good album, as I think the moral of the story.
Yes.
For me, I'm not really sure how to organize this list. I think I'm just gonna go with maybe what I discovered in the order that I discovered it, I suppose. So every Big Black record is on my list because that's what it started with, and it all kind of comes down to what order to go in. So the first thing that I remember actually hearing, of course, was Atomizer, or the Rich Man's 8-track tape, which was the CD that had Atomizer, Headache, and Heartbeat on there. It resonates a lot. It rings out. It's highly nostalgic just hearing the beginning of Jordan, Minnesota. And then Passing Complexion was always this, it was like a godlike song when we discovered it, because the main riff, it's I believe I talked about it on the Big Black episode, that it's just guitar harmonics, regular touch harmonics, played double picking it, and then play with a bunch of distortion. It's just harmonics, but it doesn't sound like that on the record. And the record sounds otherworldly. It sounds like some alien instrument. It's completely different and beautiful. That alone was this band's very interesting, because it was punky, but it's not. I feel conflicted calling it punk because it's not really. You couldn't put it along. So Atomizer was 84, I believe. Atomizer came out. No, 86. Sorry, 86. It's a little bit. It's late in the punk scene, but it's still pretty early. And you get songs like "Bad Houses," where it's this gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, slow, kind of haunting, melancholy melody, guitar lines and everything. And it's with these weird overlapping spoken word vocals. It's just such an interesting song that you wouldn't expect from a band who very much characterizes the punk aesthetic and the punk lifestyle and all the DIY stuff, and then the super brutal lyrics. You just wouldn't expect that kind of thing. Everyone and their mom will gush about Kerosene. Another song that doesn't really fit any punk sort of pool, because yeah, it was just such an interesting band that I didn't know where to put it in my brain as a kid. That's just where it started. I gave Songs About Fucking best on our episode because it's just everything about it. I mean, I just love the pacing of it. The lyrics are hilarious. It's the most buzzsaw, insane guitar sound that Albini will ever have in the whole career. But the one, if I had to pick the most impactful Big Black record, it's cheating because it's 3 records. It's the Hammer Party CD, which has Lungs, Bulldozer, and Racer X. I still remember. It's so funny because I forgot about this until right now. I didn't even talk to Robert about this because I forgot. He had the CD, and I remember when he brought it back, and I was like, "Shit, it's more Big Black." Nice. He puts on Lungs, and we've heard Lungs. It's a weird little solo record that Albini was ashamed of for years, or he just didn't like it for many years. And when I was hearing it for the first time, I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. Like, this is so fucking crazy good. And it's this really goofy little record that I still have this incredible fondness for. And then, so I listened to Lungs probably the most at that time period because when Bulldozer came on, Robert's CD was fucked up and almost every song was just skipping to High Hell. So Bulldozer was unlistenable. Parts of Racer X were okay, but Bulldozer was unlistenable. I didn't actually get to Bulldozer until I'm borrowing all my music from Robert. He had a vinyl of Bulldozer that I ended up borrowing for like a year. And that's how I got into Bulldozer. And then eventually Racer X became my favorite. But I'll never forget like the hearing of Lungs for the first time being like, holy shit, they sound like this now. This is like, it somehow was this like extremely fond memory. Lungs might be my personal favorite now. Going back to it now, I'm thinking about it, might be Lungs.
Yeah, no one to this day writes riffs the way Big Black or Steve Albini does. They, like you said, they're alien. They're technically the most metal riffs ever because they sound like actual metal. My childhood friend Arturo like loved these albums, and he was right. He thought I would like these albums. He introduced me to a lot of cool shit, but he's also just like so passionate and also like likes listening to off-putting music that sometimes, like, in my brain at the time, like, it'd be like, oh, like the Big Black and the more like crazy off-putting shit kind of ended up in the same camp.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't. And he eventually, he was right. Yeah, I do love these riffs. But that was like my inner, like, he lived with me for a minimum of a year, maximum of 3. I forget what it was. And yeah, so like all his fucking noise albums, CDs just laying around and like seeing the Big Black songs about I was like, that's funny. And then I think I heard bits and pieces. I wasn't there, and I think maybe there was a way to sell me on it, but it wasn't Art's way. Yeah, unfortunately.
I see what you mean.
Or maybe I just needed time. Who knows? But I'm here now, and yeah, just a fucking rad, phenomenal, unique band. I'm amazed they don't have more copycats, actually.
Yeah, because it's not. There's some bands where if you copy them, it would be too obvious. I think of Primus. Like if you were to copy Primus, you'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" It's
Primus.
Yeah,
yeah. This might be the same thing.
I bet they can't get the fucking guitar tone right. That's what I would guess.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it's fucking hard.
Yeah. Which album you got next?
So going in the past, at the beginning, moving into the future. So I thought it was interesting, like, Pixies Nirvana was my introduction to him. And then as I got older, started getting into like stoner metal and sludge rock, he was still there. And I'm gonna do Ohm's Pilgrimage.
Ooh, okay.
Which I don't know, we probably won't do an Ohm episode, and I don't know how long, but to me it's Pilgrimage or God is Good for their best album, but we're talking about Albini, so I'll just say it's God is Good. The band's first two albums are very raw and minimal, variations on a theme and Conference of Birds, and I love those albums, but they are pure, it's just pure bass and drums, and they're fucking amazing. And then on Pilgrimage, they're bringing in these other instruments. It's like, oh shit, this is a different band now. And just, I don't know, it's just cool that for the band deciding to take that step, they were able to have someone like Albini guide them. I know Al has history in Sleep, but I could see how that's maybe a little daunting, maybe a little scary, bringing in these different things, and he was able to give them this really full sound for a two-piece.
I think about Albini doing metal bands and how much I wish he did more metal bands. He did a lot, but because of how much, because I went on a whole rant about how much I love the sound of the band, right? Whatever. Nothing I want more than a metal band like that. Like, I don't want an overproduced metal band. I want a fucking group of dudes with too much hair who are probably overweight, wearing black t-shirts, playing the shit out of their instruments.
It's kind of a shame he never got to work with Sleep, because then he also worked with High on Fire, so he, kind of worked with Sleep. Speaking of out of shape dudes with too much hair, Matt Pike. And yeah, even might as well just talk about High on Fire when you're talking about, and then Albini did Bless Black Wings. That is...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, that's one of their best, and that's probably, even in 2012, just looking at the Wikipedia, even in 2012, before Albini passed away, Stereo Gum gave this, one of the top 20 Steve Albini produced albums.
Really?
So this is probably... I love that Liturgy album, obviously. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But that is weird. That is crazy. That is avant-garde. So Bless Black Wings is probably Albini's best pure metal album he's ever done, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, interesting. Man, that's a bold claim.
I mean, because he didn't really work with too many metal bands.
Yeah, there's you can probably count them on one hand, maybe two hands, but probably one hand. Because the only one that comes, there's two couple that come to mind, but the only one that we covered on the pod, and that was Burning Witch. Oh,
Burning, yeah. Yeah, I love Burning Witch. That's a great album, and that's another one where you listen to it, you're like, Albini did this? Fucking rad.
Exactly. And when we on our episode, I kept talking about how much better that first EP sounds compared to the second one because of Albini. It's it's night and day how much better it sounds.
I'm kind of blowing my load here because I'm just going with the flow, whatever. It's not a usual episode. I don't care. You could make an argument for the Neurosis albums.
Of course. I was waiting for you to do that. I'm like, Alex loves this band.
I think just pure, at its roots metal, though. That Bless Black Wing, it's Albini doing thrash metal, which is fucking crazy. And I do love those Neurosis albums. But again, those are more on the avant-garde side. It does make sense for Albini to do those, but I think Bless Black Wings just makes the least sense. It's the most primal, guttural thing.
Yeah, because even Burning Witch, they're black metal, but they're still a little bit more on the post side of things, more than just straight, obviously not just straight black metal. High on Fire is like we talked about on our episode on their most recent album. They're just like a blue collar metal band. Like they do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but they're not really they're not getting too wild in one direction or another. They're just a strong, we're going to make some killer riffs. We're going to make it headbang, and that's what we're going to do. And we're done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think like straightforward, no thrills, like
frills.
No thrills. Yeah, sorry. You got Bless Black Wings, and yeah, it is. I guess looking at everything he's worked on, that is kind of a crazy outlier.
I never would have guessed it, and I never would have believed it until I saw it, because I heard the album, didn't know it.
Yeah, for sure.
For my next picks, I mean, it's like. It's going to be the Albini bands. I'm going to run through all the Albini stuff, all his bands, because we did full ass episodes on each of his bands. So Two Nights on the Pack Mule from Rapeman. I mean, that album is such a fucking juggernaut. It was such a big deal in my life at the time. I think in high school, like early high school, maybe 9th grade, and then maybe even 8th grade before high school, I was listening to that one a lot. And, remember, I got a bootleg T-shirt of it off eBay, and some random faculty member at my high school recognized it, and he called it out. I was like, "What the fuck?" And like, even then, I knew like that's not normal. Like because you couldn't see the band name. It said Rapeman, but it was so tiny and shitty. All you saw were the fucking vacuums. Yeah. And if someone recognizes those vacuums, that's a real one right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Shellac, when I got into Shellac, that was like my personal connection to Albini, because like I said on the Shellac episode, that was, up until that point, I was just borrowing albums from my brother. Shellac were the albums that I bought. Started with 1,000 Hertz, and then at Action Park, which fucking, floored me. And I was like, I listened to, Accidental and Greyhound the day it dropped. And yeah, big deal. Seeing them live was like a huge fucking deal. I couldn't believe I got the opportunity. I'm very grateful I got the opportunity, even though I was like 16 at the time. So yeah, all those albums are great. Huge fan of his bands, hugely influential how he recorded them, the style of writing, his guitar tone, all of it. For other albums that had a significant impact, I got to get another obvious one out of the way, and that is Goat by the Jesus Lizard.
Yep. Fucking phenomenal.
I've said, I'm sure my taste will dip and change from day to day or month to month, but it's an easy go-to as my favorite sounding record of all time. There's just something.
It's a good home plate.
It's like, it is exactly that perfect little recipe of, well, one guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and the Albini method that in my head anyway. You think of like, big lively drums that are equally as like driving and upfront in the mix as the bass. Guitar is a little bit more peripheral, but not buried. Vocals super buried. So I get that, like that template. I can't think of a band that fit that template as a band more than Jesus Lizard, because if David Dow's vocals were loud, it would be fucking chaos, pure chaos. So you need him buried. So he on that album, he's buried, but he's also drowned in a lot of reverb, and it sounds like he's wailing from the bottom of a well. It sounds really fucking crazy. The drums sound incredible. David Sims' bass is the most punchy thing ever, which is perfect because his bass riffs are like so hooky and catchy and grabbable. And Dwayne's guitar lines are these spooky, crazy, creepy, East Bay Ray sounding fucking like dirgy horror leads. I don't know what you would call them. Really bizarre. You could tell he has a lot of southern like, I don't know what influence or training or whatever. You can tell like by the way he plays. You can tell how good of a guitar player he is, like just in a very unorthodox kind of southern style. But he's playing these fucking maniacal psycho riffs with it. It's just a perfect album, and it's a perfect sounding album. But what got me in, but before that was Pure and Head. because though that's the first thing I heard, I bought the CD out of like, oh, the guy from Scratch Acid. All right, I'll do this. And fucking, it was a game changer. Head specifically has such a, even though I think Goat is the best and it's my favorite and it's like one of the greatest albums ever made, Head is probably is definitely the most nostalgic for me. So Head is huge. Head is fucking huge. Pure is amazing too, but Head is huge.
Yeah, great band that I should have maybe, discovered sooner in life, but I'm here now.
Happens when it happens. Yeah.
I'm here now. I was talking about Neurosis, and he worked with them on a few albums. I think the obvious choice is Times of Grace, but I
was waiting for it.
I'm not gonna pick that. I love that. I love that album, but I just kind of have a special place in my heart for Given to the Rising. I think I started listening. Neurosis was a hard fucking sell to me.
Really?
And one day it just fucking clicked. The first time I heard Neurosis, it was like too anxiety inducing. The points of the songs that were supposed to feel like these big releases kind of felt like edging. Like, no, you can't come. Like, that's what the music felt like to me. I was like, what a fucking strange fucking thing why would anyone listen to this band? And then as my love of the slower, heavier shit, this started to speak to me more and make more sense. So I think around like 2010 was when I got into Neurosis, and this was just their most recent album at the time, and I was just amazed at how cinematic it was and how it was so crazy hearing Albini work. We talked about noise bands, punk bands, two-man bands, but Neurosis is just so cinematic and movie-like, and I think the album sounds amazing, and it was just like another awesome layer to Albini that he could balance all this shit going on in this very heavy as fuck band.
I haven't heard Given to the Rising in so long. I think I only heard it once ever, but I'm kind of delighted and very surprised that you went with this one. I didn't realize that this was like your gateway to Neurosis.
Yeah. I mean, I bought a bunch of their albums and obviously, because who knows when we're gonna cover Neurosis, but obviously the classics like Through Silver and Blood, Times of Grace are fucking amazing, but I think it was just cool that and then after Times of Grace, they it's not a bad period for the band, but it does kind of feel like they're kind of stuck there, and they do want to do more, and the album with Jarbo is great, and they're not bad albums, they're great, but there was this something about Given to the Rising where it felt like this is officially the next chapter for the band.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because that was from what I remember, and it's been many years now, that was them stepping a little bit away from the doominess of their original sound.
Yeah, there's definitely pretty stuff going on in this album, which they dabbled with in The Eye of Every Storm, but this just feels like a more complete package to me. And then also, I think if someone's first album to a band is good to great, it's just always gonna hold a special place in someone's heart.
Same. It's exactly with me with Head, where I actually kind of went in thinking I'm not going to like it as much as Scratch Acid. And it's comparing, I mean, Scratch Acid is amazing. Check it out on Scratch Acid. But I was still excited. And then hearing how different of a band they were and hearing Dwayne, especially Dwayne's guitar lines, I was thinking, this is incredible. This band is amazing. And when I heard Go, it just fucking, I mean, that was it. That was like, it shaped my entire musical brain. And I mean, like it was, I mean, it's like discovering porn at a young age. It just fucking changes everything. All of a sudden, music was different from that point on because of the Jesus Lizard, because of Slint, because of Swans. It changed fucking everything. And it's the reason I'm fucked up now, but I'm very grateful. It goes a little bit further back, but I kind of appreciated it as an Albini album later on. Is you hinted at it earlier, Surfer Rosa by the Pixies.
Absolutely.
Another fun one because of how much Albini just hated it and hated the band and shat in it for so long, which is pretty funny.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I think he might have retracted some of that in the later years, but for a while, he just was very open about how much he hated it. And I don't think he was trying very hard when he was recording them. I think he was just trying a bunch of shit. And we talk a lot about this with Robert because he knows a lot about it. He's an encyclopedia. But I think it wasn't the first thing I heard from them, because the first time I heard the Pixies, it was in a car on the way to the first show the first show I went to. I've seen bands play, but I never they were just like ambient. It wasn't like I wasn't going to the show. The first show I went to was 7 Seconds, and I think I was 12. And I was with my brother, and like their friends, and one of their other friends was driving, and I was like this child with all these adults, because I wanted to go to the show, and they're like, "Yeah, fuck it, we'll go. That seems cool." And Robert liked 7 Seconds, so it was an easy sell. On the way there, all I remember was Monkey Gone to Heaven and being annoyed as fuck by it. Cause like, I guess wasn't my 12-year-old brain wasn't ready for that kind of thing. Yeah. But not long after that, maybe like a few weeks, maybe after that, somehow in my household, there was a comp, like a burn CD with a bunch of Pixie songs on it, and a bunch were off Surfer Rosa. And that's when I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I imagine we'll cover Pixies in the future, maybe not too distant in the future because it's not a very tough discography. But Surfer Rosa is always my favorite. I mean, there's something about the flow of the songs. I find a lot of that album to be spectacularly underrated. And there's such a character and charm to it. And a lot of that is Albini. Obviously the songs are great, but it's just a record that sounds unlike any other. I can't think of any other record sounds like that one.
I think it's just kind of a match made in heaven. No pun intended. It's so crazy how unique the Pixies are and how like big they became after their breakup. And yeah, they're, one of the most unique voices in rock and roll. It's like the Pixies sound like the Pixies. They don't sound like anybody else. And yeah, it's so crazy that, this is probably the second most listened to album Albini has done, and he hated it.
Yeah.
I do like the weirdness on that album of like Broken Face and, or like Tony's theme. That's not
Tony's theme.
Yeah, it's not like off-putting noise, but it's just kind of kooky, and it's like, well, if like Big Black and Shellac and Neurosis or Albini's Dark Side, and the Pixies have some dark humor in their lyrics, but this is all more playful.
It is playful. Yeah, it is definitely playful. And I know he did a lot of like experimenting when recording that album too, in a very playful kind of way. Like, fuck it, we'll try this, and it ends up coming, and it sounds like it's such an unusual. Like, if you went in now trying to make a record that sounds like that, I bet it would be complete dog shit. I mean, I bet it would come out sounding like you were trying too many things. But
oh, for sure, I know like Pixies are the quiet loud band.
Yeah.
But man, like this, how you're talking about like In Utero, like the opening song, you fucking know. I think Bone Machine does the same thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just
especially when it's just like Black Francis and Kim just like doing the harmonizing and everything drops out. It just sounds so fucking good.
Yeah, it's really one of the best openers. There's something about like just the structure and formation of that song. It feels like it's constantly starting and stopping.
Mm-hmm.
But so oddly enough, whenever it starts up, it feels like the song is starting over again. And you're like, oh fuck yeah, it's back. I don't know. It's one of the most fun things I've ever heard Albini associated with.
I'm just gonna go like a little bit off the cuff and this kind of like reflect on like all the albums we've listened to on this podcast from bands that he produced. Like Silkworm's crazy because I don't think you heard. I think you were like pretty floored. You were like, "What the fuck?" Like Albini produced this shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's a band that snuck by me for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So it's this always cool to find him in these nooks and crannies of the music universe. Even on a band that we may not love, like Sparkle Horse.
That's right. Do you know which record did he do for Sparkle Horse?
Is it Bird Machine?
On the most recent one, the posthumous one, right?
Oh, that's why we have it.
We haven't heard it yet.
Yeah,
we should be doing the episode on that one actually because we check an episode on Sparkle Horse. Yeah, that was a Tom request. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so there's that, and then just the crazy, like, it's just cool to hear like Albini work with at the time a younger band like McCluskey. Like, I thought that a very cool chapter in his career to continuously work with them.
That was a great band. Great episode. Check out that episode. Yeah, I mean, what a cool little underrated band, McCluskey.
Yeah, and then another one of those, LB, I didn't know he worked on that, and I haven't listened to them in a long time, but like Don Cab is just like...
Oh, dude. Speaking of Don Cab, that's like the last album I have on my list is American Dawn. And yeah, and that is still to this day the only Don Cab album I've heard because
you're just scared nothing's gonna live up to it.
I'm sure they're great and they do something else. The reason why I'm so obsessed with this album, and I've been for a few years, my old drummer sent me a song from this album many years ago. And it's a very much his kind of band. He's also showed me bands like Botch and stuff. And this album, there's something so special about it because it's a extremely technical, tight group of dudes that sounds sloppy as fuck. Which is like, how do you make these incredible musicians who are playing perfectly sound sloppy? And it's the way it's recorded. And that is why I think it's amazing. There's something weirdly, I find it to be a bizarrely therapeutic album.
Interesting.
It's one of my favorite albums to drive to read to like if I'm sitting somewhere just zoning out and looking at the sky or trees, that's the fucking album for me. It's like, if I want something that I don't have to think about, that I want to calm me down, I'll put that on. It's a terrible album, and I say this from experience. It's a terrible album to put on in front of people who aren't into that kind of music, but I do it anyway because it calms me down.
Fair enough. To me, there was a lot of like local indie bands playing like math rock, but it sounded socially acceptable to me. It was like clean math rock. And then I heard Don Cab and I was like, Oh, they kind of like laid the groundwork for these band. Oh, actually, a lot. When I heard them, I was just like, oh, they're another one of these like local LA bands running in these circles. I don't know what they're up to these days, if they're still around. Like Sleeping People is a very cool band, and I could hear like the ties from Don Cab to Sleeping People.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see how that, I mean, how it would be such an influential little style, because I find myself to be very highly influenced by heavy music played clean. It's some of my favorite just textural type of choices, and I end up doing it a lot when I make my own music. And something about American Dawn that's like, it's so drum heavy. It's such a drum heavy album, and the drums are produced so lively and big where they're almost echoing out. And he's a busy drummer. He's doing a lot. So it's just kind of dominating both guitars, which are, they're kind of like little spidery, buried kind of sounding guitars. But it ends up giving it this jazzy feel to it, this jazziness, that it's rehearsed. These are written songs, but there's something very freeing about it. It feels very loose. It feels like they're just doing it. They're just free spirits playing this crazy, complicated music. There's something that gives it this formless freedom feeling. I don't know. That's just what it channels for me. It feels like a very free album.
Yeah, not Albini produced, but if you're feeling adventurous, I think you would like Don Caballero too.
Oh, okay.
That's like my go-to. Also, it's just like so crazy, the shit they were doing in the 90s, and it just had its impact on bands in the 2000s.
Yeah. There's because obviously Steve Albini was like the poster child for Touch and Go Records. Touch and Go, which we have a full playlist on YouTube. So I mean, it's like a good chunk of episodes that we've done from bands on Touch and Go, and Touch and Go was one of the all-time great labels. It was just kind of slips my memory that Corey Rusk is the head of it, and then it slips my memory again. Like, oh yeah, Corey Rusk was the guy from the Necros, a punk band that I quite liked, and I remember back when I was in my deep punk phase and when I was a teenager, that Conquest for Death, I believe, was like the Necros album, like the album that everyone was like, oh, that's the album. It's one of the best albums that came out and whatever that year, and never being able to find it because they wouldn't reissue it. And Corey is the head of Touch and Go. So there's like, why wouldn't you reissue your own band's album? Maybe I haven't checked in many years. Maybe they have now, but it wasn't for a long time. And I found a killer ass bootleg at this record store when I was like a teenager. So I ended up having just such a fondness for that album. And to think that, like, obviously when Albini passed, Corey writes this really heartfelt thing about it. And it's such a cool connection because Albini was of the punk scene. He was around, he was in it, but he just wasn't playing it, or he was playing it something like kind of adjacent, but more on the outskirts, more of like he's more of like the redhead stepchild a la fucking, Butthole Surfers, who were also around at the same time period, but not playing hardcore.
Yeah.
It's comforting to know that he came from all those roots, but embodied what I always felt to be like the real meaning, quote unquote, of punk, of like, yeah, make something different, make something that's yours. Don't follow the things if you don't want to follow the things. Use your fingerprint. Put your footprint on there. That's exactly what it was up until the end. The man worked a day job very successfully, and then just put out a random ass record with Shellac. That's typically a very odd album. It's just he did it right.
Yeah, one of the most punk guys ever, but not playing traditional punk.
But yeah, it's a huge loss. And yeah, our way of like paying tribute is just geeking out over a bunch of random ass albums, but that's the way it is, man. That's a hell of a legacy when we're talking about fucking all these completely different bands and it's all tied to one dude.
It's pretty fucking crazy. Yeah, like outside of like Rick Rubin, I can't really think of another producer where I'm just like, that's the fucking dude. Like, he worked with some of my favorite bands.
There's so much like personality when you see this person's name attached to something. I mean, Rick Rubin is the perfect example of like, oh, his name's on there. So there's going to be something about this that's going to resonate in whatever way that his records usually do. Even if it's a band like you don't like, the man had a fee, and if you paid the fee, he recorded you. There was no discrimination. There was no gatekeeping. There was no, I also appreciate that aspect so much. He's just a dude working a job that he happened to like. And if you go on like the Electrical Audio YouTube page, there's really charming videos that they were putting out, every couple months, where he would just be talking about this. Well, here's how I record this type of instrument. These microphones are good for this. This is how this amp is a unique one that I'm just going to talk about this amp for a while. It's a dude who like loved his job, was really good at it, who also was an embodiment of great ethics, like really great ethics, especially business wise, and a hell of an artist.
Truly one of a kind and the best to ever do it.
But that'll get concluded for this segment. There's a lot of episode left. We talk a whole bunch with Tom and Robert about. I mean, we're mentioning like the stuff that's important to us. Some of the albums that we're gonna be talking about are fucking like stuff you've never heard of that all involves Albini, stuff you wouldn't expect. It's really fascinating stuff. There's the rabbit hole, the Albini rabbit hole does not end, especially it doesn't end here. But one thing that I want to preface, because I do talk quite a bit with Tom about this, is Albini's work with Oxbow. And if you've gotten the news, I'm just going to briefly mention here, because at the time of recording with Tom, Eugene has now left Oxbow. He did not.
Oh, fuck. I didn't fucking know. No.
When we recorded that, it was a few days before he left. So we're talking all about it, and there's no mention of that. So that's just the timeline of this. There's not been any details disclosed about he wrote an article about it, but he just said that, irreconcilable differences, and they had to cancel the end of the tour. It's wild. Everyone's kind of grasping like, what? Oh no.
I am so fucking thankful. I feel
so thankful.
I'm not a religious person, but I feel blessed. The second I saw that, the first thought was, oh no. The second thought was, thank fucking God. Oh my God. I almost didn't go. I would have been upset. I would have been fucking pissed. I'm glad they put out that album, and
so lucky. But plenty more Oxford talk coming up, and it's still a great band. Go check out the albums. But
stay tuned for Tom. I'm sure Tom and Robert are gonna be the meat and potatoes this episode. Well, I'm just garnish.
Honestly, dude, it's about an even 1/3. This is going to be a 3-hour episode. Everyone's contributed about an hour each.
I know. I just feel, I'm the speed host. I feel like they're going to be a little more informative.
So what I liked about this episode is that everyone has their own exact thing about why they like Albini. Mm-hmm. And each person has all four of us have completely different things about why. You and I are probably more similar on why we like Albini. We're pointing to these specific albums, these things that we love, and then the guy as a whole. Whereas we'll get into a little bit more semantics, so to speak, with Tom and Robert. So stay tuned for that. And thank you, Alex, for putting this list together and joining me for this one.
Of course, my name's on the podcast.
It is on the podcast, and God damn it, it's been a sad year. It's been a great year for music, but the saddest year. But yeah, so stay tuned and see ya for now. And we're back, this time with someone who hasn't been on the show in a while. Well, that's not true. You were here with a couple of interviews, the Buzz interview, the children interview.
But we've actually, isn't that funny that we have done an episode together in person way before we've done an episode like this.
I know. That's fucking nuts. Check out our episode when I was in Berlin a year ago, and Tom and I debated. We debated albums. We some controversial picks there. Very fun stuff. I quite enjoyed that episode a lot. I wasn't expecting it to be that long. I think we talked for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it did go on. It was my, I got carried away at a certain point, and I was like going through down on the upside track by track. And at a certain point, you were just like, right, okay, let's carry on.
It gets what ends up happening. It's been happening more in recent episodes with me and Alex, where we're covering 5 albums and we're talking for fucking 3 hours. And okay, something's got to be done. But also, you want to do justice. You want to be thorough, because I'm not going to talk about that band again for a while. So, yeah, what the hell now? It's our thing. Goddamn, we can do whatever we want.
Great.
So we're talking about Albini. Obviously, this is a hit the every album ever home pretty hard. So yeah, we're doing I hate using the term memorial because it sounds so somber and sad, but it's really just like, hey, let's talk about the things that we liked, the things that affected us, because we're all giant music nerds. We're all like life sentencers when it comes to making music and doing all that. So there was no one who embodied that, I think, more than Albini. So Tom, your albums, the biggest impact that has had on you, albums that he was on, albums that he just did, ethos of his, just let's start with an album. Let's make it nice and concrete. Let's start with an album.
Okay. So I imagine that there's going to be some crossover here. I'm going to be interested to see what ones I pick out that no one else has said anything about. So you've already done with Alex and Robert, so you know everything apart from me that's going to be on the episode. Is that right?
No. I'm doing it in complete reverse order. So I did Robert yesterday. I'm doing with you now, and then Alex is last, even though it's going to be in the different order. So
I see.
I'm
okay,
like guessing,
so I'm ahead of Alex. So it's unfortunate for Alex if he. Okay, well that's going to be interesting to see if I've taken anything that he's going to want to pick.
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing, and I've got props as well, because I wanted to try and have like a release that I could show you for each of them. Partly it's not possible because I don't have all of them in physical copies, and also because I'm like in between 2 different places. I've got some of my records here, but not all of them, which is disappointing because there was a couple of records I really wanted to show you. But basically, I've got what I've got. So the first album I want to talk about, I don't have anything physical to show you, but I'm going to quote a line from the album and see how quickly you can identify it. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite lines of any song ever, which is, I think I fucked your girlfriend once.
Maybe twice. I don't remember.
Then I fucked all your friends' girlfriends.
Now they hate you. Absolutely. Bad Penny. It's one of the greatest lines ever. It's one of the greatest.
And I think that this is, I mean, I don't know, maybe Steve Albini's sense of humor is quite well recognized, but that to me is one of like the enduring things from the records that he's on, is the way that he does insert these hilarious lines sometimes that kind of come out of the blue. Like a lot of it is very dark. The music's very abrasive. Often the lyrics are quite grim. And then he'll throw in lines like that just absolutely crack me up. And I think, I don't remember in the episode, did you give any accolades to songs about fucking?
That was my best. Yeah.
That was your best, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But not your personal favorite?
No. Personal favorite is Racer X. It's always going to be Racer X. For some reason, that EP just hits it with me.
Racer X is really cool. And also, I think once I got into Big Black, which would have been, I can't like really remember how I first discovered them, but as with quite a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about here, Mark Prindle definitely is involved. So like a lot of stuff came through him and his website. But I think Songs About Fucking was the first Big Black material that I heard. So probably it has like a kind of a special place in my heart for that reason. But I've probably listened to, what is it? The Rich Man's 8-track?
8-track tape, yeah. Rich Man's 8-track tape.
I probably listened to that more. And like it's got Kerosene on it, which I was absolutely obsessed with for a while. But yeah, Songs About Fucking, that like Bad Penny line stands out. Also, another, probably the track on the album that I've been most obsessed with at different times was Precious Thing.
Yeah.
I love the guitar sound for that. Like, I think you talk about it in the Big Black episode, and you probably mentioned it in other episodes as well. Like the way that Steve Albini had this guitar tone.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's just like how did he do that? This crazy metallic thing. And it's just like, I think that song Precious Thing is like a great example of how nasty he can get it. And also the harmonics in it as well are really, really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I talked to Robert a lot. We go, if you want to talk about guitar, Albini guitar tone, I talk in depth with Robert about, because he's a gearhead and he knows all, like a surprising amount about how he got that tone and how to get it and like all the nuance behind it. It's fascinating. Because the man didn't hide any information about it. He was all out in the open, but it's just it's like almost as if he was a machine, like the way he's able to create this kind of all these sounds that were so machine-like. So, I mean, everything about the man was engineered. Like, I mean, the way he worked, everything was so mechanical. Everything was so, I don't know. It's like he was wired together. He wasn't made of bone and tissue.
And I think that description that you've given, I sort of illustrates why Big Black really stands the test of time. Because if you listen to them, you can kind of go, right, it's like we've got a pretty dated drum machine and we've got some other fairly dated elements, but they sound as intense as ever. Like it doesn't come across as being cheap. So somehow they manage to sort of like take sort of quite sort of not particularly sophisticated equipment, but like put it together in a way that comes across as really impactful. And I don't know if many other bands have really managed to do that as well as they did. Yeah,
the drum machine thing is especially interesting because what was it, an 808 if I'm not remembering?
Rings a bell.
Yeah,
I'm not a gearhead, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also not. So I'm just basing it off of vague memories. But I mean, that's a super, like you said, a super dated drum machine. But there's something. It ends up registering to me more industrial than it does as like 80s ass drum machine.
Yeah,
and so I'm thinking back about all my favorite things that Albini was involved with, and I have like just a list. I'm picking out all these albums, but it's every Big Black record. It's like they're all on there. So it's just that's such a fast. Even Lungs, the very first EP, which I know.
Yeah, I was just listening to it the other day, and I was like, shit, this is really good.
It's weirdly good. It's such a home recording, but there's something about it that really like that one brings me back. I think the most nostalgia. Weirdly enough, because it wasn't the first Big Black that I heard, but it feels like the one that made me an Albini fan. Weirdly enough.
And I think that illustrates why I refer to Albini as DIY Jesus, because he can just take a bedroom recording and make it sound really cool. It's just like to go, like, it doesn't matter what you've got, doesn't matter what you've got available. If you approach it in the right way, you can make something that's going to sound really cool 40 years after it was made.
He's like, his recording in general, I think, is a very specific type of gift, because you get someone who loves the shit out of finding ways to record a band, finding ways to record something to capture a sound, but with an aesthetic that is not what, I guess, I don't know, I want to say mainstream, but like you think of like the best producers and all that, there is like a through line. And then he comes with this most like, well, I have all that same passion, all that same love, but I want to do it this way instead. So it's like this holy grail of this. Oh, I want this live sound. I want this in the room with you sound. I don't want this immaculate thing. I want this real thing.
Yeah.
And he was just gracious enough to just go into fucking detail. Put the mic here. Do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to get fancy with it. I mean, perfectly fine to do it this way. I've tried it this way many times. I think it's this one. It's very grateful.
Isn't it funny as well? It's almost like a paradox that Steve Albini was very conscious about not inserting himself into the sounds of bands. And yet, conversely, we kind of recognize stuff that's recorded by Albini because it has this kind of sound to it, which is kind of like not having stuff produced on top of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that way. Like you can recognize him even though he's actually not interfering with the sound of the band.
It's kind of hilarious how it's completely different approaches. But it has that similarity with someone like Rick Rubin, who's this dude who's, I'm just here to bring what's already in you out of you. But Steve Albini is also doing that by essentially doing nothing. He's like, I'm just here to record what's in you and bring it out of you. So it's just different approaches, but the same kind of thing. Like you're the one bringing it. I'm just here to capture it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Hell yeah. Next, what you got?
Okay, so next one here. Oh, right. Okay, so I've got a prop. So this is not the album, but this is connected to it. Let's see if you can recognize the cover.
Okay.
I mean, you'll probably see the name. I'm just not sure how well it's going to show up.
Oh. I mean, I definitely saw the name, but that cover gives a lot away. I have not heard it.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this. Maybe I just put it in notes of a certain episode, the Neurosis Jarbo record. So this is not involving Steve Albini. So that was just to reference to Neurosis. But as you may be aware, Steve Albini did record, forget how many, 2 or 3 Neurosis albums.
I'm thinking of 2. There maybe was a third. I'm thinking of Sovereign and shit. What is it called? I like it a lot.
Times of Grace?
No. I guess that's another one. The other one, it's red. It's fucking red. It's cool. It's red and black. Oh, god damn it. It has
Enemy
the
of the
tide
Sun?
on there. Huh? Yes.
Enemy of the Sun.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Enemy of the Sun is very, very cool. Interestingly enough, I think, okay, so it's Neurosis, it's Times of Grace. But, you know, with this thing, I kind of decided I wanted to pick out a specific album just to sort of have it presented in that way. But it's not really as sort of fixed as that. It's more like, you know, the band that he worked with, and you know, I'm highlighting a particular record, but I think everything that he did with Neurosis is great. I discovered Neurosis again through Mark Prindle's website, and I got into them in a bit of a weird entry point. So I don't know what it was like for you, but I first listened to A Sun That Never Sets, and this was before, like, there was definitely internet, but it wasn't as it is now, where you can just like, you know, listen to a whole bunch of stuff by a band. So I basically went, I'm going to buy one of the records. Which one's it going to be? Well, it was actually a CD. And I bought A Sun That Never Sets, which is really kind of like when the band had drifted away from being really sonically overwhelming, and they go very, very sparse and very kind of ambient. And I've grown to quite like that album, but it was not a good introduction for Neurosis. I was like, I don't understand what this is all about. And then I listened to Sovereign, and I thought, I don't really understand this. Like the mixing of it to me was so weird. Like it felt so dense. Although, funnily enough, I think dense is a word that Mark Prindle has written about hating. He's like, don't ever use the word dense when you're reviewing a band.
Oh man.
But it just, like, I don't know if you remember that record very well, but it's like, it's very unlike what I would think of as like a traditional metal band in terms of the mix. And maybe that's kind of true of Neurosis in general.
The album I was thinking of was Sun That Never Sets. And I mean, I'm getting, because the name of Sun is in both of them, but the one I was thinking of, because Albini did do Sun That Never Sets.
And what do you think of that record?
I like it. I don't think it's perfect, but I could say that about a lot of Neurosis albums, even though I do like them. But the song, I honestly think it's one of my favorite sounding metal albums. There's something about that drums, because I mean, the Albini drum sound, we know about how fucking good it is, but it's a band that already hits hard, and you just want something to show you actually how hard they hit.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I'm sitting right in front of them. I don't need it to be, I don't know, enhanced by studio stuff. I want to feel like what they are. That is what they are.
I remember being quite surprised when I discovered that Steve Albini had worked with Neurosis, because I didn't know that he would work with a band that was that heavy, or like I didn't associate that kind of music with him. So I found that kind of fascinating. But I grew to like A Sun That Never Sets and Sovereign. But it was actually when I got Souls at Zero, which is their third album, that was out on Alternative Tentacles.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And that one was like kind of the one where I fell in love with the band. And then I went through sort of chronologically. And for me, what will always be like the pinnacle is Through Silver and Blood.
Oh, yeah.
But Albini's not on that one, or he didn't
No.
record that one. So I picked Times of Grace because I think that's probably my favorite of the Albini recorded Neurosis records. And I think it is quite similar. Like if I wanted to show someone what it is I really love about Neurosis, I probably would pick Through Silver and Blood first. But I think Times of Grace gives you very similar kind of reward from it. It does have that same kind of intensity. It's got this like very apocalyptic element to it, like Under the Surface, for example. Like it has this very tribal kind of rolling drums from Jason Roeder, who I think you talk about in the Sleep episode, right? Because he ends up playing for Sleep.
I don't recall. Does he?
I think so. Yeah, I think he was on the most recent album, and he's amazing as a drummer. I absolutely love his playing. So, and I don't know if you probably know about this. You know that Neurosis have got this side project called Tribes of Neuros, and they made an album called Grace. And this is like the Flaming Lips thing, that if you play Grace at the same time as Times of Grace, they'll fit together. I have never been bothered to set up two systems and play both at the same time. But
I was going to ask you about that. Because that was my introduction, because I've only heard Times of Grace maybe a couple times. There's a lot of Neurosis albums I haven't heard, but I knew about that before even hearing the album, thinking like, oh, it's one of those. That's pretty cool. And it never occurred to me to do. I mean, it's actually really inconvenient to do that. And it's like wildly inconvenient to do that. Zyreca is one thing. I mean, that I'll never be able to pull that off, which is hilarious that I can't get my hands on 4 boomboxes. But yeah, that's a fascinating idea. It's an interesting album. I know, without giving too much away, because we haven't done a Neurosis episode, I know Alex is quite fond of Times of Grace. But it's funny, you're talking about your odd introduction to Neurosis. I think mine was the most stupid and the one people will agree with the least, where I started with their first album, listened to their first album exclusively for years. I was only into their first album, which is the punk album.
I think that's pretty cool, because Pain of Mind is a really cool album. And I think it gets forgotten about because it doesn't really fit neatly into what people think of Neurosis, but it's already like, quite a thing of itself that I mean, you know a lot more about punk and hardcore, but did that sort of like fit neatly within anything else when you heard that? Or was that just kind of like this strange thing of itself?
It was a strange thing, because like I listened to it because I thought, a really bitter, dark punk album, 100%. I'm on board. And then, I guess you can call it punk. And there are some songs that are super duper fast that like, that's obviously hardcore, but there is just this unsettling nature to the whole thing. That was some of the ugliest riffs. It's a really fucked up punk. I mean, you can call it a punk album for sure. Yeah. It's fucked up. I still love it.
Would that qualify as crust, do you think?
I think I think it would probably fit more in line with crust than it would calling it hardcore punk, because I have not too deep of a history with crust, but there was some stuff that I listened to that I enjoy. I think it would fit more with that. But even then, it still has like a lot of stuff that you'd see them. There's not every song is super fast. There's some stuff that you could see like they had the ingredients of what they would be. And even then, it was before Steve Until joined, and there was still 2 singers, still Scott Kelly, and then another guy doing a more gravelly, rougher style than him. So like the foundation was there, even if all the ingredients weren't.
Yeah, I feel bad. I always forget the name of the bass player, who's the one that has the really, really deep voice. But he's really cool. I like it when that was actually one thing I wanted to say as well, is that it's a really peculiar thing that Neurosis have, and I guess there might be other bands that do this, but they basically have shouted harmonies. So you've got the bass player, whose name I can't remember, you've got Scott Kelly, and you've got Steve Von Till, and they've all got like a different type of shout. And so that's one of the things that does pop up on Times of Grace that I like, and they also do on Through Silver and Blood, is you get to have all 3 of them doing their different shouts at different times, and it just makes me laugh to think like this isn't really harmonies, but it kind of is harmonies.
How is it not? Honestly, like if you look at it from just an objective definition point of view, it is 3 different sounds coming together.
Yeah.
It may be a little bit fucking harsh, but I think it's great.
Yeah, they do it well. So yeah, for me, like, and again, not wanting to, interfere with potential future Neurosis episodes in your discussions with Alex, but kind of like summing it up for me, my personal preference, I kind of think of Souls at Zero from 92 and Times of Grace, which I think was 1999.
Yeah,
that is like my golden period of Neurosis. And Steve Albini covers like half of that. So he's very much involved in my favorite era of the band.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. What you got next?
Yeah, I wrapped it up nicely there.
Very nicely. It's almost like you do this before. You've done this before.
Right. Next one. So I generally avoid collecting. Vinyl is a bit of a dangerous thing. And I have a few bands where I've got into this really bad habit that I just can't stop collecting all their stuff. Now, this is particularly a problem with Swans and Killing Joke because they have so many releases. I have every single I Hate God album on vinyl, but luckily I think they only have like 6 albums. So that's not too bad. I have almost every Typo Negative vinyl now.
Which one don't you have?
I don't have the Butthole.
Oh, okay.
Although
the butthole. I love it referring to it as the butthole. Of course.
Whatever it's called, the live, not live album.
Yeah.
Origin of the Feces, that was it. And I don't actually have the most recent one, but I know I can get them, and they're kind of like my 2 least favorite albums. So anyway, I'm not talking about Typo Negative.
Right. Check out that episode.
Check out that episode. The first episode request I ever requested, exactly.
Yeah.
I was so excited when you did that episode, honestly. I remember sitting down to watch it. I was like, oh, this is amazing. They're going to talk about the band I want to hear about. Anyway, there's another band that I cannot escape from collecting. I have everything that they've done on CD, and I have a number of their records. The particular one that I want to highlight, I don't have on vinyl, but I will show you the vinyl that I have because Steve Albini recorded 2 albums with this band. So I have one on record and I have one just on CD. And
why did that slip my mind? I'm a fool. I'm a fool for letting it slip my mind. Of course.
So that was Let Me Be a Woman from 1995, which I like a lot. But it's very difficult for me to pick a favorite Oxbow album. I like all of them in different ways. But the second album that they did with Steve Albini, Serenade in Red,
another one I love. Yeah.
Could be my favorite Oxbow album. And so, yeah, I don't actually remember how I discovered them. I have a feeling that I discovered Oxbow through some YouTube comments. I think I was actually watching a Neurosis video and I looked at the comments underneath and someone wrote, Neurosis, Unsane, and Oxbow are the only bands that are always amazing. I was like, all right, let's check out Unsane and let's check out Oxbow. And I was not disappointed by either.
I've only heard Unsane's first album. I heard it a million times, but it's the only thing I've heard.
I would say that they have a formula and they stick to it.
Okay.
But I kind of like everything that I've heard by Unsane. But this album, Serenade in Red, was kind of like significant for me in terms of my appreciation for Oxbow. It's where I kind of noticed that Eugene, when he sings, he's often not actually singing the lyrics, like he's just sort of embodying them in this very physical way. So it's not even just like a death metal thing where you go like, oh, I can't understand what they're singing, and then you read the lyrics, you go like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what they're doing. I mean, I guess there are actually plenty of death metal bands where they probably are just going blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But what I would say is a thing that separates Oxbow and separates Eugene, partly that he has this style of singing that no one else has, but also if you read the lyrics of Serenade in Red, and with the lyric sheet, like it's probably not going to show up very well on the camera, but it's quite nicely illustrated.
Oh, yeah.
It's very noirish. They have all these different illustrations, and when you read the lyrics, you're like, oh, this is poetry. This is like really poetic. And then you listen to the album and you go, he's not actually saying some of these words. Like, it's not just you can't understand it. Like, some of the time he doesn't even finish the line. He's just chosen to do part of it. And I find that really fascinating. And I can't really think of another example where someone has put in that much effort to the lyrics, but when they're singing, you need to have the lyric sheet. Otherwise, you literally don't have all of the lyrics on the record.
That's fascinating. That I did not know that. That's really interesting because I actually went through a little conundrum like that with an album I put out with my, an old band from like 6 years ago, where I no longer wanted to sing this certain line, but I didn't want to change the lyrics. So I ended up just omitting the lyric. So now in the song, it doesn't make sense. It actually doesn't make any sense. But I didn't put them anywhere. So it's just a chunk that is complete nonsense, but originally had a meaning to it. I like his version a lot better. There's context there, even if he didn't sing it all.
I had a similar thing with a song that I think I've just decided to bury into history, but I was thinking about re-recording it. And then I was like looking at the lyrics and going like, oh, I don't like any of the first verse, or maybe it was the first or the second. I was like, I don't like this whole verse. And I thought, I don't think I can replace this. And I thought, what about if I just have half of it instrumental? And then I sort of played with that idea for a while and I went, you know what, it's just not worth it. Just move on.
That's the nature of it. You have to like it. If you don't like it, why the hell should anyone else?
Indeed. But yeah, on the matter of Steve Albini and Oxbow, I know that Eugene interviewed Steve Albini not so long ago. And I think Steve Albini might have written an introduction for his book, but I could be, no, I think it was Lydia Lunch.
Lydia Lunch, yeah.
But I know that Eugene and Steve Albini, and Oxbow in general, like got on really well. I think Eugene had, I don't remember if you mentioned it to me, but Eugene had a really nice kind of eulogy to Steve Albini on his Substack, which I've forgotten the name of. I want to say it's Look What You Made Me Do, but I have a feeling that sounds familiar.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Because I haven't heard his podcast, but I have read his Substack.
Yeah. So yes. Eugene S. Robinson, Substack, very well worth reading. And yeah, I feel like he kind of his comment on his sort of thoughts on Steve Albini after Steve Albini's death were really great and poignant. So they clearly were kind of kindred spirits.
Yeah. All right. Some of the sadness is seeping back in.
All right. Let's move on to some comedy.
Yeah. Okay.
Once again, going back to Steve Albini's own music. I used to have this on CD. I don't have it anymore. It is 1000 Hertz by Shellac.
People who've seen the episode last week know how I feel about that.
And I don't know. I don't know because it's not out yet. So I think this was the first Shellac album I heard. And I can remember reading a review for it when it was coming out. I guess I sort of knew about Steve Albini. I don't even know if I'd actually heard Big Black at that point. Maybe I had, but it was definitely my introduction to Shellac. And going back to what I said before about the like low-key comedy of Steve Albini, two more of my absolute favorite lyrical elements from anyone. The opening track, Prayer to God.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just unreal.
Part of what I think is so fantastic about that song is the way that he starts off by saying, to the one true God above, here is my prayer. And you're like, okay, so it's a prayer. But by the time he's going into the kill him, fucking kill him, kill him already. I have forgotten that this is a prayer to God. And then you get all the way there and he goes, amen. Amen. Like, oh!
It's brilliant. It's so good. It's poignant and kind of heartbreaking and still funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mentioned on the episode that I never thought about it, but I think he's one of my favorite lyricists because there's always just a funny way of saying something. There's a lot of funny concepts, a million different funny concepts that like, why the fuck would you write a song about squirrels? But why not?
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of, I do think about that from time to time, like turns of phrase and choice of words. And I guess this is sort of a key element to comedy. Like a big part of what makes comedy effective is just having a kind of a turn of phrase that you don't necessarily expect. You can sort of listen to someone's routine and go, and on the one hand think like, oh, there's nothing particularly unusual about that. But then when you think about the specific words that they chose to use, it's like the magic is in the detail. So yeah, I think
100%. Yeah.
Steve Albini was a low-key comedian.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think when you say comedy, I think about Theo Von, where it's just choices of words matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also the rest of him is fucking insane, but yeah, 1000 Hertz. I mean, so many great lines in the whole thing, but subtle, surreal comedy is kind of what it is.
Yeah. Well, the other, yeah, as you say, there's all kinds of highlights on there, but the other standout for me in terms of lyrics is what you referenced before, the squirrel song.
Yeah,
and this was another one of these things that I would like quote to people repeatedly. And I realized, unsurprisingly, that I had slightly misremembered exactly the wording of it. Like I pretty much had it about, there were squirrels and there were thousands of them. But I pulled it up so that I could have it word for word exactly how he says it. So
by all means.
Because they were squirrels, real squirrels.
Squirrels.
And there were thousands. This isn't some kind of metaphor. God damn, this is real.
This is real.
I have no idea what's going on, but it's compelling.
Yes. And also, not to mention, he opens with, "This is a sad fucking song. Hopefully I don't bust out crying."
What the hell is going on?
I don't know.
And to go from prayer to God into that, what a peculiar album.
So peculiar. So good. It was also my first Shellac album. Yeah, I remember it being like a big deal because another thing I talked about in the episode. It was Robert, my brother's way of saying, "Okay, well, here's your Steve Albini," because I got all the Big Black, I got Rapeman. Here, have Shellac. I'm like, yes, Shellac is mine, baby, and that's what I started with. And yeah, it's never left.
And so I remember from talking to you about Swans how you were listening to Filth when you were 11 or something like that. So
I think it was 13.
13,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you get exposed to Steve Albini, and where did Shellac fit into that?
I think it was all kind of around the same time. Like Robert, my brother, he found it all very close to each other. I think Scratch Acid was I think Scratch Acid might have been, I don't remember if it was Big Black or Scratch Acid first, but those were early. That was probably maybe 12 around there. And he reminded me that I have in my recollection, the first thing I heard was Rich Man's 8-track tape, which is, essentially Atomizer with some EPs, but mostly Atomizer. And I have a strong recollection of that. And then it comes, the Hammer Party and Lungs and, Racer X and all that. So that was there. It felt like a while, but in kid years, it was probably like a year. It was probably 12. And then 13 is when the rest start coming along. I start, I want to say 13 was when I got 1000 Hertz. Yeah. And 14 is kind of when I was very eagerly anticipating the release of Excellent Italian Greyhound, because as soon as I got into Shellac, I'm like, well, when's the next one coming? It's been fucking 6-7 years. When the hell is it coming out? Little did I foresee that would be a very ongoing trend. Yeah. So I was like checking the Touching a website because it said album is going to be coming out this year, and I'd be like fucking going back every day, like any update on that album. So it was 13, 14. Those are like the prime Shellac years.
And I forgot, I do actually have
Terraform. There it is.
I do have a Shellac album.
Yeah.
Is this the one that's got the?
Yep.
I shouldn't mention this because I sent lots of really stupid emails to Mark Prindle. So if anyone actually goes through the Mark Prindle website, you'll find all kinds of just really
it's so
stupid,
embarrassing
emails that are going to be there forever.
It's fucking horrible.
But I do remember I did post some funny comment about that album. I can't exactly remember what it was, but I think it was like for his review, he was like,
it's like a page full of like, did it. Yeah.
And I pointed out that he'd actually like messed one of them up. Because it's like, I actually went through and I was like, I'm fucking counting this.
Did you actually count it? Fuck. Was it close enough?
Oh, I can't remember what it was, but he got something like just slightly out. He almost had
Just
it perfectly, but like I was the one anal enough to actually go, I'm gonna check this
yeah.
dum for dum.
So what's your opinion on that song?
I love it. What's your opinion of
Okay.
that song?
My opinion is that I like the song. It is a baffling opener.
It is definitely a baffling opener. Yeah. I mean, I picked 1000 Hertz. It is weird because it's like I think you get so engrossed in that track. It's like it works in itself, but then to go from that into the rest of the album where all the songs are quite short,
100%.
it does have a very peculiar flow to it.
That's exactly my feeling. I feel like it's an album that I really enjoy that has the worst pacing that I can think of. Yeah.
But then again, I mean, do you think it would be better if they put that song at the end?
It doesn't feel like a closer.
No.
I think it would. I think maybe it wouldn't have worked in the middle, but I think I would have liked it in the middle better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think a little bit of when I was talking to Buzz, and he was talking about having that track at the long track at the start.
Oh yeah, the 20-minute one.
Yeah,
on the new album.
at the start of the album, and I was thinking about that. It's like, it's a tendency of bands to put the long songs at the end, and then maybe it gives the listener sort of a tendency to go like, oh, I can't be bothered with this, it's too long, I'm just going to skip it. But if you put it at the beginning, there's no way around it. So
there is no way around it.
It's a very different kind of experience.
You also go in a little bit more energized and a little bit more open if it's the first song. Like I found myself, I've said in the past, I find myself very forgiving of opening tracks because there's still plenty to go. It could turn it around. And the only difference I'd say is, even though I enjoy Didn't We Deserve a Look at You the way you really are, it does drag. It's not like that Melvin's opener where it's like 5 different songs in one. It's really just the one bass line for 12 minutes.
Yeah, you can't really break it up into separate tracks.
Yeah.
That would be quite funny if they had done that, like that Melvin's album where they had the two, everything split in two.
The Maggot, yeah.
The Maggot,
every song was, nonsensically, every song was split in half, like almost haphazardly.
Indeed. Yeah, I think that's more or less all I've got to say about Shellac, but I am very much looking forward to hearing you talk about their albums on the episodes. So yeah, I appreciate the one spoiler, but I won't ask for any others.
Okay, got it. Duly noted. It was a delightful, both this episode and that one extremely cathartic, and I would say needed.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very happy that you organized this. I'm glad to have the opportunity to celebrate Steve Albini.
100%. Yeah, I think we should have you on like a lot more, because it's insane that you're just behind the scenes and you have your own podcast, and it's very engaging, very good interviewer, by the way.
Thank you. Anytime.
Hell yeah.
Anytime.
Hell yeah. Next album.
This one's going to be pretty quick. I don't have a huge amount to say about this one, but and I'm curious to know. This might have been something that Robert mentioned. I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce the name right. Zeni Jeva.
Dude, fucking yes. Okay. Thank Christ, because when I was talking to him, we talked for an hour plus, and I was before calling him, I was like, don't forget to ask him about this thing. Don't forget to ask him. And at the very fucking end, in the last like 2 minutes, I remembered. And because I remember the 2 tracks that he did with him. There was 2. One of the songs became The Guy Who Invented Fire. And there was another one that I'm remembering that I heard on rotation, and I was never able to look up where I didn't know how to Google it. I didn't know how to find those songs. So now that please go on.
So I don't remember how I discovered this band. So they're a Japanese kind of sludge metal band, I suppose you would say. Although these days I don't even really know what sludge metal means. It's like sludge could be I Hate God, even though they don't consider themselves to be sludge, but everyone insists on calling them sludge. Could be Neurosis. Neurosis and I Hate God don't sound anything like each other. But I think when I was introduced to the name Zeni Jeva, it was presented to me as being like, if you like early Swans, you'll like this. I think I actually found them because I was like, I want to find something that sounds like Cop. Show me a band that has the percussive intensity of Cop.
Yeah.
So I found out about them. The album was Desire for Agony. So I don't actually know the full story with Steve Albini's relationship with them. The main guy goes by the name of KK Null. Yeah. And I have a feeling that he's kind of a big deal, but I haven't really looked into him in detail. But I don't know what the relationship was between him and Albini. But I think Albini recorded Desire for Agony, and then the next one is Freedom Bondage, which I actually have, but I don't have it here, so I can't pull it up. He might have done some other stuff with them as well.
What was the
But
first one you said again? You said Desire for Agony?
Desire for Agony, yeah.
I believe he did Total Castration as well.
Right, okay. So I think Desire for Agony was the one that I would say, again, it was the first one I heard. Freedom Bondage is cool, but I think Desire for Agony stands out for me. So even, from my limited knowledge, if I was going to recommend an album for people to listen to first, I would go for that one. And I think in a way, having it compared to Swans was a bit unfair, because it's like I was looking for something very specific. And of course, it's a completely different band. They're not going to satisfy this thing specifically. But once I kind of forgot about that element of it and just enjoyed them for what they are, then I could really appreciate it. It's like, it's very misanthropic. It's very heavy. It's very shouty. But there's also kind of like groovy elements to it. It can be a little bit funky in places. So yeah, they do a great churn is a note that I wrote down.
I'm very interested to hear that now, because the reason it came up is because Albini did 2 songs with them for, I think, some compilation. One of the songs ended up becoming The Guy Who Invented Fire, but it was a much longer version, which has always been my gripe with The Guy Who Invented Fire, is that it's 2 minutes and you want more of that main riff. And I just didn't know where it came from. And then my brother is like huge into Japanese bands and Japanese noise. So this is, I'm very interested in this now.
And I guess actually that's a good point. It's a bit misleading if I call them sludge metal. I guess it's like noise sludge is maybe like, it definitely has that kind of noise rock aspect to it. But it's also like, in that way that Neurosis were never just a hardcore band. They always had this dirty, gritty, we've been in a basement playing together for months in the same clothes kind of aspect to it. I feel like that's the Zenny Jeva thing. It's like, oh, there's noise rock, but it's going to get nastier than that.
Yeah, there's a little tinge of something sinister about it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
That it's not that related, but it reminds me, like, when you fall into a rabbit hole of like, I love this album or this band so much, I need something more. I need more to satiate that desire. That was me with Slint, which is right there with Spiderland, of course. And I'm looking at all these early, I guess what you would call early post rock bands, like Rodon or whatever, and Juno 44, that like, oh yeah, these guys kind of like were heavily inspired. And it's like, it's not the same, but you just got to drop it. You got to leave it at the fucking door, because those are good bands.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's ever going to scratch the itch. That's the point.
No, indeed. Well, it's like, I have the same problem when I try and find something that's like Typo Negative. There's nothing. I don't generally like goth metal. Somehow Typo Negative just had a very specific thing that I really enjoyed. That's
such a fascinating band to me, because everything about it on the surface, even if you show me a couple songs, you're like, this isn't my thing, but you drop it all and you just get into it. It's like they're really cool, interesting band. It's such a an aura about them. That's just, I don't know. It's not tangible. It's a very ethereal thing. I don't know. I'm getting all whimsical now, because it's like, what is this element about them that makes them good? I can't put it into words.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That's it. It's the ineffable magic. Okay. Now we're going to get into something pretty wild.
Oh.
So they're kind of like, I've been sort of, obsessing is too strong a word, but I've been getting fixated recently on 2 different bands, neither of which would be bands that I would choose to listen to a lot, but they're kind of fascinating to me, and I just can't quite get over my fascination. They're also quite different, but the first one is Anal Cunt, and I'm not particularly talking about Anal Cunt, but I keep bringing them up in interviews with people. I'm like, what do you think about Anal Cunt? But just as the one example, I just got this fascination with them, and I don't know what it is. Like, I've watched documentaries about Seth Putnam. I was actually watching something the other day, and people were talking about him being a complete arsehole, and other people were saying he was actually a really interesting, intelligent guy. Steve Austin from Today Is the Day, one of my favorite bands, has some quite sweet anecdotes about Seth. So I just can't get over this fascination with them, even though I would very rarely choose to listen to Anal Cunt. So this band that I'm going to mention really have nothing in common with them, other than the fact that they're a band that if you bring them up, some people are going to go, oh, but I can't help my fascination. And this is not what Steve Albini's worked on. I have one of the records, but not with me. But actually, I would have been a little bit hesitant to show it because the cover is so weird. This cover looks all right.
Okay. Okay.
Do you know this band?
White House. No.
Okay. White House is a really fascinating band.
Mm-hmm.
They started out, the like kind of name changes whatsoever. It's basically William Bennett is the guy. And he started out around about the same time as the kind of Throbbing Gristle, Current 93, Coil, Nurse with Wound. They all sort of came out in around about the same scene. I know, like, Throbbing Gristle were like performance art thing, whatever, like late 70s, early 80s. And apparently, William Bennett was actually quite good friends with Stuart Stapleton. Is that the name of the Nurse with Wound guy?
I don't recall.
I can't remember his name. Mm-hmm. But the two of them actually made an album together where part of it was Nurse with Wound and part of it was White House. White House are kind of the originators of what is it? Power electronics, I think. It's horrible. Like, it's a lot of it is screaming high frequencies intentionally. Like, I think the whole mission statement of the band was to create something that was utterly sonically overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And they have a whole bunch of releases through the 80s. They've got all this kind of like, one of the things that's fascinating to me about them is they never, ever explained themselves. Mm-hmm. So they had this kind of lyrical fascination and fascination in terms of the imagery of serial killers, of kind of like the most horrible base, abuse, violence, sexual violence, all these things. To me, it doesn't come across as being at all tittillating or at all done to kind of glorify anything. But having said all of that, I never like was aware of them at the time. Like, I'm coming to it after. So it's like I absorb the things that I absorb when I do. I think they're incredibly pretentious in terms of like, we are going to address these topics and we're going to do it in a way that like assaults your senses and you're going to have an experience. And like, they probably have it all thought out as to what it means. They just chose never to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have very strange feelings about White House. I kind of went down in a rabbit hole with them. I just kept seeing this name mentioned. Like, I was reading some book that was about Coil and these other bands, and White House got mentioned occasionally. Like, oh, what is this White House? And then I looked up on like Rate Your Music and I'm like, this looks really grim. And then I listened to it and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this. But they disappeared. They kind of disbanded in the 80s. UK band. I think William Bennett's originally from Edinburgh. They reformed in the early 90s or late 80s, went over to the US and recorded several albums with Steve Albini.
Interesting. What a resurfacing.
And it's a little bit confusing in terms of the releases, because I think they had like a couple they recorded with him, and then there were bits where it's like he recorded some tracks for them. So there's a couple of albums where Steve Albini's credited, but he didn't do the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the album that I want to select is Halogen, which is one of the ones that Steve Albini did record. For anyone that hasn't heard White House and they're like, oh, I'm going to check out White House, be prepared. Like, this is not hyperbole. This might be the most intense, overwhelming music, air quotes, that you will ever listen to. Like, I think a lot of bands have tried to recreate what they do. And in fact, little plug, for the album that I'm going to be putting out relatively soon, which is a collaboration, one of the tracks, it was like inspired by White House. What ended up being produced is going to be something that's much milder, like by a million factors. But I was kind of trying to channel that energy. They do a lot of like shouting, and a lot of the time it's like in first person. So it's like basically a very abusive person shouting at you. Like, they've got a song that's called A Cunt Like You. So you can kind of get the vibe from that.
Yeah.
Halogen has got a track called Lightning Struck My Dick, which I recommend people check out. It has sounds in it which are like it sounds like it could be the sound of, electricity, like giving you a charge.
Jesus Christ.
Some of the stuff I think is pretty funny intentionally. I do really think that they are quite a interesting artistic creation in small doses. Yeah, so I would recommend that people seek out a few tracks by them. I would love to be able to have seen some kind of documentary footage of Steve Albini working with them. Um, there's a whole lot of controversy with them that like would take too long to get into, but it's like they had this guy in the band called Peter Sotos, who was sort of a documenter of abuse. So like he would have audio recordings of people talking, being interviewed after they'd been abused, and he would create these collages. And some of the White House albums will have like one of these Peter Sotos collages. And it's just
that's
so
gnarly,
great.
man. Yeah.
Most people would say, why do I ever need to have this in my life? And I would say, completely understand. I feel a little bit like with White House, like I do with Solo, the Pasolini movie.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to explain this to someone, I would never tell anybody you need to watch this movie.
Yeah.
If you can handle it, I think it can leave quite an impression. So yeah, White House have left an impression on me, and I'm fascinated by the fact that Steve Albini was kind of like a significant part of their story.
That's wild. When you're comparing a band to Solo and it being like it's a movie I still have no desire to watch, by the way. Remember when I was in Berlin with you and we were talking, that was because I had never heard about it before that, and you enlightened me. And it's like, I mean, maybe one day, but I'm not going to be thinking about that for a while. I mean, because I do, even though it's such a thing that you can't pitch to people, because why would you want to? There's a fascination. There's something about really disturbing art that makes me happy, and I'm not going to say I'm going to be happy watching or listening to White House, but there's something about it that the same way people like horror movies. It's not necessarily. Some people like to be scared, but a lot of times it's not even about the scary. It's about something, a form of art that's really fucked up, being executed in a way that makes you feel that.
Yeah,
it's like a pain simulation without actually feeling the pain.
Yeah, I think
humans are fucked up.
I think there's really value to that, and so yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it if someone said to me like, "Oh, I hate White House," but I do find them fascinating. And like I say, I don't think it was supposed to be titillating. Who knows really what their intentions were? But I have a feeling that William Bennett is someone of integrity. I've heard him being interviewed. He never explains the band, but he seems like a very intelligent, very thoughtful person. So it leaves me feeling quite fascinated, horrified, and as I say, in small doses. Then I think because it's like, if it was a movie, and they went right, let's have the most intense soundtrack to it. Yeah, you're creating a soundtrack for a really intense experience. Not everything has to be entertainment.
That is. I don't know if you meant for that to sound so profound, but that really is what it is. It's not everything is meant to be entertainment. Yeah. Art definitely fits in that, but I think I've never thought about it that way. That's absolutely true. I'm not listening to certain of the most brutal shit ever to be entertained. Exactly. Yeah. It's for something else. Yeah. Food for thought.
Now, I've been going off on one a fair bit. How many more do you want from me?
As many as you want. As many as you have time for.
Great. Let's keep going.
I can trim anything if I have to, but this is fun. So
nice. All right. Now, I've got one for you, and I don't know if you and I don't know if other people are going to know that Steve Albini was involved in this album.
Which?
And I'm going to sing you a line from one of the songs.
Okay.
I won't let you fall apart. I won't let you fall apart.
No, I don't. It sounds. The melody sounds familiar. The lyrics don't.
It's The Fragile by 9 Inch Nails.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, explain to me, because I'm relative. I know everyone knows 9 Inch Nails, but I have not gone through the full discography. I've never fell down a rabbit hole.
Okay, so this is like a really interesting little artifact for me. I was looking through a list of records that Albini was involved with for preparing for this episode so I could put stuff together. And that one popped up. And then I looked online on different websites and I was going, this is weird. I can't see what Albini did. What you may be finding right now what I found, if you go onto Discogs, but you have to not just look at the master release, you have to actually look at one of the specific editions. There are a couple of credits. Now, I don't know if you found it yet, but let me say this to you. If you were thinking to yourself, okay, a band is going to make an album and they're going to bring Steve Albini in for like one little element of it, what little element do you think that would be that they would go to Steve Albini for?
I can only speak for myself. I would say drums. All right.
You got it.
All right.
So
all right.
The credits say recorded by supplemental drum, Steve Albini, and supplemental drum recording at Electrical Audio.
That's where you would do it.
So I don't know how much of the drums were done by Steve Albini. Like, this is a very, very tenuous example, but I'm just so fascinated by the fact that there is a Nine Inch Nails album that's got Steve Albini involved in it in some way. I used to have the Fragile double CD, but again, I don't have it anymore. So unfortunately, I can't just look at it to spot his name there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am intrigued that he's involved with it. This was an album that I was really into when, I guess when it came out. Like, I discovered Nine Inch Nails with the Downward Spiral and with Closer, like when it came out. So when I was about 14, I guess is when that came out. And when the Fragile came out in 1999, I was very much in my adolescence, very like angsty virgin, just like listening to like all of the angstiest music that I could find. Various friends around me who were listening to hip hop, and like I would listen to it a bit, but it's like it just didn't scratch that itch. I need it to be angsty. It has to be more angsty. It has to be very like just adolescent guy, just like
yeah.
Trent Reznor, very talented guy. Will still listen to some Nine Inch Nails from time to time, but that definitely scratched that itch at that point in time. And the Fragile, there's an argument to say it's kind of overblown, you know, like it is a double album. I've actually interviewed a few different bands recently who cited Nine Inch Nails as being like the pinnacle of influence. And I think there are one or two who actually singled out the Fragile as being this really, really impactful album for them. So I think it is really, really cool. It's very varied. It's got a couple of tracks that I absolutely love. Like, if people aren't that familiar with the album, Into the Void is probably my favorite Nine Inch Nails song. Nothing to do with the Black Sabbath song. And The Big Come Down as well. So if people want to check out the album, those would be the two tracks I would go for. And in fact, as I say, I don't know how much Steve Albini was involved in the overall drum sound, but it is the percussive element of it, or like that's one of the biggest factors for me that make me enjoy it so much.
That's it, because that is not what I think of when I think of Nine Inch Nails. I don't think of the percussive element. I don't think of the drum sound. So that's very interesting and apt.
Yeah. So I would be really interested to know. I don't know if Trent Reznor's talked about it, but like it would be interesting to hear the story of why he decided that he wanted to work with Steve Albini and how that actually went down.
Yeah, that's never saw that one coming. I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming. Very cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Next one, again, I don't really want to dwell on it too much, but I think it's worth bringing up. And I don't know if you or Robert particularly talked about this, or if Alex will. In Utero.
So I'm sure Alex will. Robert, after we finished recording, he was like, shit. I was wondering why you didn't bring that up. Nirvana was the first band that you found that exploded everything. Yeah. So there we go. Now it's your turn.
So I can't remember what your comments were on the Nirvana episode. Did In Utero get your best and or personal favorite?
No, it got Alex's personal favorite. I have my only problem with it is the sequencing, the song order. So much so that I literally made my own In Utero playlist with what I think is a better track listing, and I like it a lot more. I love the songs. I just don't like the order that they're in. Very
interesting. I think that if you take, is it Bleach? Is that the first album?
Yeah.
You take Bleach and you take Nevermind and you take In Utero, it's such a fascinating combination of sounds between the three records. Of course, they've got that aspect of the songwriting of Kurt Cobain, and I think I've heard Dave Grohl talking about this, like they actively wanted to write songs that were as simple as possible, almost to be like kind of lullabies. So there's something very, very catchy to Nirvana that you can hear all the way through. But they obviously had this real interest in abrasive music, in noise. They liked Swans, they liked Melvins, they liked all kinds of stuff that was very rough and very harsh. And I think it's really fascinating to listen to those 3 albums and hear how they represented that in different ways. And yeah, never mind, some people might consider that to be overproduced by Butch Vig. I mean, I think it's an incredibly produced album. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing how it sounds. And for them to go from that to then work with Steve Albini and make something that sounds so different is wild. And another reason why I wanted to pick it is because I think for people that want to kind of reflect on what like examples of how great Steve Albini was and like how much he had to fight against the system is the story of that album, and like the way that the record label were basically like, no, bin this, no, we don't like this is not catchy, we don't like the sound of this, go and do something else. I think I remember an interview with him where he said like they really kind of crippled him for a while after that. Like it really had major financial consequences for him. But yeah, what a guy. He's just like, they want to do this, I'm going to do this with them. That's fine. You know, just like, I feel like to him, that album is just like any other album that he's worked on. It's just like, they come to me, I'm going to record it. There's all this like major label noise going on around, whatever. I'm going to do my thing with the artist and do what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so, I don't know. It's like it is the honor that you find in a dude just doing a job. There's no, I mean, cause he wouldn't take points on the record. He was just taking like a flat fee, like just stuff that, you're not going to find a whole lot of that. Cause with someone in that position, there really is no guilt of like, well, yeah, I mean, this massive fucking label is going to be giving you anything you want. There's no real consequences other than your own morality, your own principle on it, rather. Like, do you believe this or not? Like, because really you're not hurting anybody by accepting all these points, all this money. But do you really believe it? And the man did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was doing an interview just the other day, and I was bringing up Steve Albini, and I was asking this person, like if they had someone else that they sort of thought of in the way that I do, of this sort of like this iconic figure that's sort of like a hero, an icon for DIY music. And he brought up Ian MacKaye.
Oh, the other, yeah.
I think you can sort of take the two of them together as being those incredibly principled guys who, when it came to their music, they would never compromise, and they would never just accept the possibility of making money if they thought it was dirty in any way. And I don't have that high a moral standard, and I can only admire it.
Absolutely. If someone said, hey, here's, what was it, fucking $4 million to play at Coachella, I'm going to say, thank you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Indeed. Actually, there's no reason for me not to say the person I interviewed. It was Justin Pearson. I don't know if you know that name. Do you know Justin Pearson?
It rings a bell, but not enough.
Well, I guess you can find out when I drop the episode. I believe. I think this episode is going to come up for that. He's in Dead Cross.
Oh shit!
Band The Locust. And
shit!
He has a record label, 31G. His record label is 31G.
Totally feel like an asshole now. That's great. That's great. That's good stuff. That's real good stuff.
So yeah, his icon is Ian MacKaye, and yeah, completely understand why. And he brought up the Coachella thing as well.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's pretty incredible that they got offered that money. We're like, nope,
because it's not about the money, man. Is that why you got into it? Yeah. Then that'll dictate everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just become a slave to it. Yeah, it's very impressive for people. It's to see people like that who are just so committed to their standards.
Yeah, I said it in the Fugazi episode a million episodes ago. Go check out that one. If you're fine, and you're not hungry, then why would you compromise anything? Like other than greed, I guess. But like, do you need it? Is your life substantially worse without it? Then why give them anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to flip my table. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right. Next one, very quick. You've talked about it before. I don't know if you specifically will talk about it in this episode. I imagine that you probably brought it up. Goat, Jesus Lizard.
Yes. Oh, yes. Please.
So, love it. I believe this was your best personal favorite.
Yes.
In the episode. I think it's always been my favorite Jesus Lizard album. I love the sound of it. The Then Comes Dudley is just like such an incredible opening. I don't think I really have much more to add that you won't have said already, but I do want to just insert one little funny David Yao story for the episode. So I remember reading that, he was kind of like known for having all kinds of onstage antics, and the one particular story I remember, and I don't know whether he did this more than once, and maybe I told you about this before actually, but I don't think it was on the episode we did together. I read where he had taken a large bar of chocolate and he put it down his pants. And as they were singing, or as the band was playing, like all the lights down the stage were making it hot and everything was melting. At a certain point, as he was wont to do, he jumped into the audience and then he put his hand down his pants and with the chocolate, and he was like going at people with the chocolate. I just think, I love that.
I love him. God damn, that's a fun guy. I mean, not a guy you want to hang out with all the time. I mean, it's exhausting, but Jesus, that's fun.
What a character. Yeah. So that was just my little anecdote about that one. But yeah, obviously Steve Albini had a long relationship with them. And it was extremely fruitful.
Oh yeah, indeed. I mean, one of the greatest sounding albums of all time. And also an album that, when I think of the ideal album sequencing, the album track listing of this type of song followed by this type of song, it ends up, all my favorite albums end up just following the template that Goat set. So big, heavy, mid-paced opener that kind of just kicks your ass away. Follow up that's faster, higher energy, kind of is where the album shifts into, fourth gear or whatever. Third one keeps momentum, but not quite as ferocious. Like it's this template that, just stuck with me as like, oh, that's the ideal. That's the ideal album flow. Yeah. And it's just the best sounding thing ever. Holy God.
It is an incredible album, an incredibly sounding album. Next one, again, I don't have a huge amount to say about this because actually I only discovered this album recently, but I wanted to bring it up because it was recorded by Steve Albini and I'm really fascinated with it and I'm definitely going to listen to it more. So I recently did this podcast episode with Gregory Jacobson of Lovely Little Girls. Mm-hmm. I think you told me that you watched that episode.
Great episode. Yeah.
Oh,
everyone check it out right now. Yeah.
That's very sweet. So yes. You may remember that Gregory brings up a band called Cheer Accident.
Yeah,
who are kind of intertwined with Lovely Little Girls. Have you ever listened to Cheer Accident before?
No.
They're really fascinating. So I'd was aware of them when I interviewed him, but I hadn't listened to them. And then I discovered that Steve Albini recorded Introducing Lemon, which I think came out in 2003. The band had been going since the early 80s.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really fascinating record. As a kind of a little entry point, I would maybe describe it as being, it's like in the same world as Oxbow, that kind of angular art rock guitar music. It does have a bit of that sort of Lovely Little Girls element for people that have heard the band. It's a little kind of like cabaret. Mm-hmm. It's also got a bit of like a sort of a grand Led Zeppelin sort of, like if you think of Kashmir, it's not quite as like huge as that, but it does have something of this kind of like grand rock to it. I think it might also be, although I don't really know the band very well, a bit comparable to Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. Do you know them?
No.
So yeah, I can't really say very much about it because I haven't listened to it very much. Interesting art rock, interesting instrumentation. The opening track is like 20 minutes long. The vocals are very peculiar. It's very, very cool. So I've only really just discovered it, but I'm definitely going to listen to it more. And if people like art rock, definitely check out Cheer Accident.
Very nice.
Okay, I've got two more to mention. One of them is Blow Off the Omens by Childbite. Do you know?
No, do not. Yeah, this is all education at this point.
Hardcore noise rock. I think they might be Australian, but no, they're not actually. They're from America. Singer sounds like, in my opinion, a cross between Bob Mould and David Yao.
Okay, so slurry all over the place, but with a full gruffness, perhaps.
He's got these affectations that remind me of Bob Mould, but he's also got that more like they do have quite a Jesus Lizard aspect to them. And so, like a lot of people end up sounding kind of like David Yao in the noise rock world, I think. Sometimes they go a bit more metal, a bit kind of like math metal, like Dillinger Escape Plan. I would also like compare a bit Helmet and early Today Is the Day for people. Okay. So it was one of these albums that I discovered randomly. I think I was looking at Housecore Records, the Phil Anselmo record label, and they just coincidentally had put this album out like 2 weeks before, and I checked it out and I really, really liked it. They may have had another album since then, but yeah. Very I wanted cool. to pick that one out, and I was pretty sure no one else was going to mention it on the episode.
Oh yeah, I mean the list is endless, and there's so many names that there's plenty of names without Wikipedia entries. Just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean anything you can imagine, he's done. He's touched so many.
Even Bush.
Even fucking shitty Bush. I mean, no one was exiled or excluded, and that was a thing that was a fun thing seeing online. After he died, is all the people saying it was an amazing experience. He was amazing. He hated our band. Like that is it was so refreshing to see that.
Yeah, I love that. I think I did see that from one or two bands.
Yeah.
Last one I've got, and I wanted to pick this to sort of wrap things up because this is a band that were hugely important to me when I was, an angsty virgin teenager. Before I got into Nine Inch Nails, before I got into Soundgarden, before I got into anything that was remotely metal or hard rock, well, this is kind of hard rock. I was a gigantic fan of the Manic Street Preachers.
Oh, a band that keeps coming up that I've never listened to.
It's like I don't really know what to say about Manic Street Preachers anymore because like they were such a gigantic part of my adolescence. Like they were my favorite band. I was listening to a lot of Sonic Youth at the time, but Manic Street Preachers were like the ones. And they've got this album called The Holy Bible, which is probably what I would say for anyone who doesn't know Manic Street Preachers. For you also, if you do decide to check them out, check out The Holy Bible. It's very post-punk, kind of like The Wire or Wire influenced.
Wire, yeah.
And very dark lyrical content. Very, very interesting. Great drummer. Great guitarist, also guitarist sings, fantastic vocalist, functional bass player who also writes lyrics.
Does the job.
And they had this guy, Richie Edwards, who, fascinating character, designed some of their artwork, did lyrics, was such a bad guitar player they didn't even plug him in on stage a lot of the time. So you can watch videos of them performing together and you'll see him like this. He's playing fuck all. It's just James Dean Bradfield, great. The singer and guitarist, who's doing all the guitar parts.
That's so great. Love
they
it.
also had like, sometimes Richie Edwards' lyrics were so like convoluted. I think also the bass player, Nicky Wire's lyrics too. It's fascinating to hear, because they wrote lyrics and James Dean Bradfield sang all of them. It's fascinating to hear him figuring out how to turn these really complex, wordy lyrics into songs with melodies. So anyway, Richie Edwards disappeared after they did The Holy Bible, probably killed himself, but he left things so mysterious that no one knows. So he left these kind of like clues that left it all very ambiguous. Did he jump off this bridge and kill himself? Probably. Or did he just go into hiding and disappear forever? It's an unsolved mystery.
Wow.
Forever.
Holy crap.
So the band reappeared. They had a comeback. Commercially, they became more successful than ever. And they did a few albums. And then about 12, 13, 14 years, I think, after Richie Edwards had disappeared, by this point, they didn't have any songs that were connected to him, but they still had some lyrics left that had been written by him, or they had sort of like fragments. And they decided to turn it into an album. I don't really know exactly the story of why they decided to come back and do more with him, but they sort of went into the archives, they found some things he'd written and they made an album with it. They went to Electric Audio Studios and they recorded it with Steve Albini. And the album is called Journal for Plague Lovers. And it's really interesting. You can watch the documentary on YouTube. I think it's like separated into 3 10-minute videos. And so you get to see them making the album with Steve Albini. You get them like talking about it. Like Nicky Wire, the bass player, is like doing these sort of like journal entries where he's like talking to the camera and like telling you about his experience, like how wild it is to be recording with Steve Albini. There's a bit where James Dean Bradfield is doing his vocals and Steve Albini's like, wow, this guy's like really amazing singer. So it's really, really fascinating to see that. You know, like I mentioned once or twice before, that there's various albums Steve Albini worked on where I would love to be able to see documentary footage. So it's really cool that this band that was hugely important for me in my teen years, that I kind of drifted away from, they came back. I don't even like love Journal for Plague Lovers that much, because by that point I'd just completely gone, I'm done with the Manic Street Preachers. But once I saw that thing was there with Steve Albini, I was like, this is interesting. And it is. Some of the lyrics, like to what I was saying before about how all of this is pieced together, I didn't write it down, but for anyone who's interested, check out the second track. It's got a really weird title, and it's got this bit where he's like saying, "Mummy, what's a Sex Pistol?" And some of the lyrics, like if you read, like I suggest people read the lyrics first, think to yourself, how the hell would you ever turn that into a song, and then listen to him actually singing it.
Very fun. That sounds like a hell of an activity. Interesting. Yeah, I think about that too. When the lyrics are written first, how in the hell it's like making music on hard mode. It can come some very interesting and very unique stuff comes out of it. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of these. It's a skill that you can probably you can refine, but some people are good at it, some people aren't. I've never had the capacity of being able to write something and then put music to it. It's just, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Although it could be an exercise. It could be like, maybe pumping gas with your non-dominant hand or something like that, turning on, fucking unscrewing a bulb with your that they say prevents dementia or whatever that fucking bullshit is. Or maybe it's true. I don't know. But yeah, it's good exercises for creatives. Do that, people. Fucking yeah. But I'm delighted with your picks, just all over the map. As no one who's known you should be surprised. I mean, all over the place.
Yeah, it was a fun exercise to go through this stuff and to think about what was connected to Steve Albini. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what you and Alex and Robert have picked out, because he recorded with so many different people, even people he didn't necessarily actually like the music for. Is just like, I'm here, I'm available, this is my price, you want to come and record with me, then I will record you 100% professionally. I will put everything into giving you the best representation of your music, regardless of how I feel about it. Yeah,
it's almost like he has an ad on a van saying, come record with me, you'll get the best you'll get the best recording.
I make no promises. I'm not going to pretend that I like you. I'm just going to do it for you.
Refreshing. It's refreshing, especially for Americans. There's a lot of fluff, a lot of smiles that don't have anything behind them.
Indeed.
Yeah. But thank you so much for doing this and joining us and giving a little piece of Tom to every album ever.
A large, long-winded piece, but there you go. That is my style.
Hell yes. So now it's your turn to give plugs. Usually I'm giving your plugs. So now it's you.
Oh, I see. Awesome. Okay. So I have this podcast called Whatever Comes Next, and it's on Substack, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, and it's on Spotify, in the usual way that you have got into saying so well, that I haven't quite got the knack for yet. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, comment, all that stuff that the algorithm likes. Please engage with it. I'd be very grateful. And I interview lots of really cool, interesting people. As I mentioned before, Gregory Jacobson of Lovely Little Girls. I talked to Tommy Meehan of Squid Pisser recently. I've talked to John Wright of No Means No. I had Prisoner on, which every album ever Mike and Alex did an episode on. Yeah. Satya Sena, you talked about from ages ago.
Oh, yeah.
Had Bronson Arm, had Pete Starr from Scream. Those were early episodes. I'm very pleased with the interviews. Unfortunately, my recording equipment wasn't so good back then. So if people do go back to the early episodes, the recording equipment does get better later. But I believe that the interviews themselves are all. I stand by all the interviews themselves, even if not necessarily the recordings used.
Very sound stuff. Yeah.
But I'm figuring out as I go. I also make my own music. I've got an album that's going to be coming out, a collaboration with Augurio Drama called Real Silence, which will come out at some point this year. And if people are interested in checking that out, you can go to tomosmansounds.com. And in general, I'm on all social media at Tom Osman Sounds. Follow me, add me, stalk me, abuse me, whatever.
There it is. Hell yes. And because this is the first time you've been, not the first time, but the first time in a while you've been a guest, Tom picks the final song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah.
Oofed. Okay, let me see. Pick a song. I'm for like the whole thing, like between like me and you and Robert and Alex, I'm the one out of the four that's picking the final song.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Shit.
Robert's picked plenty. I've picked plenty. Alex has picked plenty. I don't believe you picked any.
Okay, so I'm not gonna. Oh, this is tricky because see, like, I don't want to pick a Shellac song because you've just had the Shellac episode and you're going to be having a song from that. But then again, it would be nice to have Steve Albini's voice. You've already done when you did the Big Black episode. What was the song that you picked at the end?
I chose Passing Complexion.
Ah,
yeah.
And what did you choose for the Shellac episode?
Shellac episode, I chose Watch Song.
You chose the Watch Song, right? Okay, I think. Do you know what I think? I'm going to make an executive decision for myself right now. Because we've talked about Eugene and because Eugene gave such a beautiful kind of eulogy to Steve Albini, I think I'm going to pick something from Serenade in Red by Oxbow. And I think it's Over.
Over. Hell yes. Well, thank you again. Now you can stick around while I talk to my brother Robert. Completely different kind of conversation. That's what I've been very much enjoying. It's not just we're going to do one template of how we remember Steve Albini. Everyone has their own unique way that it was impacted. So hell yes, this is very thorough. I'm sure fans of Steve Albini will get some closure from this. I hope so. But until the next one, I hope to have you on very soon. If there's any new records that you're interested in talking about, we can just do a singles episode, one and done. Just whenever, just keep me posted with anything that strikes your fancy.
Cool. Definitely.
Yeah.
I will definitely keep that in mind. That sounds like a great idea.
Hell yeah. All right. Stay tuned for Robert. Okay. And we're back. And this time I'm with someone that you all should recognize, or some of you should recognize if you enjoy Can and YMO and Japanese bands. And Mescal, check out Mescal. I'm going to keep plugging Mescal every episode I possibly can. I'm here back with my brother Robert. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for being here and joining us on this sad but happy episode thing that we're doing for the first time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, as always.
Oh yeah. So, talked with Tom, talked with Alex. We're just going through a little memory lane stuff with Steve Albini. Obviously, he's impacted everybody pretty substantially, even if it's not from his own band, it's from some band, because the guy did a lot of bands. He did a lot of bands.
Yeah, his fingerprint is on a lot of music out there.
And a lot of our souls as well. So this time it's Robert's turn to talk about the impact it's had on him and his favorite albums.
Yeah, I mean, where to start?
That's a good ass question. I don't know. Whatever feels best. Whatever you found first, maybe that'll work.
Chronologically, kind of. I mean, I guess it really did start with Big Black for me.
Mm-hmm.
They were a very mysterious group for a long time. Like, I knew the name, but was never able to hear the music. This is like pre-internet days. Like finally tracked down a CD, and it was not the best introduction. It was a Pig Pile, the live one.
That's right. I remember that. I remember you coming home with Pig Pile. And I remember shortly after that, never hearing Pig Pile again. That's what I remember. Yeah.
I mean, I could kind of recognize the quality of some of the songs on there, but you don't really want to start off with a live album as like your introduction. But that's how little I knew. I knew the name. I knew the inspiration that they had on a lot of bands that I liked. And I don't even know where I went from there. I think it was probably, I think it was a while before I bought another Big Black CD.
Really?
It could have been the Rich Man's 8-track tape. It could have been that one.
If I'm remembering, I feel like it was that one.
Yeah.
It had to have been.
Probably, yeah. It was either that or a Hammer Party.
No, it was not, because I have a distinct memory of hearing the Hammer Party for the first time and thinking like, whoa, more Big Black.
Okay, well, that's interesting because I don't know your side of it. But when I got the Rich Man's 8-track tape, that was pretty immediate. Like, oh, I got it. I was like, oh, this was the one I should have bought to begin with.
Yeah.
And just the sound, a lot of people, I mean, rightly so, they kind of credit Albini with having this very unique guitar tone, but that was very much part of I guess the group together, like Santiago's guitar, and like the bass tone was like distinct too. All that all clinging together,
all three of them,
yeah. So like to this day, I always kind of held that guitar tone as like kind of an example of I was gonna say an ideal, but like what I'm really interested in is like kind of the guitar not sounding like a guitar, but still kind of sounding like a guitar at the same time. It's very easy to make a guitar not sound like a guitar just through effects, but there was something. It didn't sound like it was slathered in effects. It sounded like really raw at the same time, and people, I've heard them try to duplicate that sound, and they're doing what they think it is, and it's nowhere close. There's a lot of misinformation, even though one of the things I really liked about Steve was he just how generous he was with answering questions about gear and like how he got certain sounds. He wasn't like a gatekeeper with like his guitars and like but it didn't really make the tone easier to emulate or track down. It was pretty distinctly him, and you could say that about I guess his approach to music in general. It's very much within the punk realm, but it wasn't really limited to that either. He had a lot of artists seeking him out. I guess his famous drum sound. People will always
don't get me started. God.
And man, I didn't really go back and revisit his music after I got the news. It was kind of similar to me, like Chris Cornell's death, where like it was too. I couldn't listen to it. It was just a little too soon.
Yeah. That's how exactly I was with Chris Cornell. It took me years. I think like 2 years to listen to Soundgarden again.
Oh, I don't remember how long it was. It was a while, but I think I did listen to the new Shellac album because I had to,
Yeah.
But what I really did, and I don't even know like how, I don't know why, but I ended up listening to Surfer Rosa again, and that is an album that I felt like I burned out a long time ago. Like I got enough plays. There's just certain albums you've heard enough times and they're embedded in your DNA or whatever. Yeah. Like you don't really need to listen to it again. But I revisited it. I don't remember why. I don't remember. And it had this funny feeling, like similar to like when I first heard it. Like I was noticing things about it that I kind of overlooked back when I first heard it. Namely the sound, the recording.
Oh yeah.
I think I didn't pay that much attention to it when I first heard it. Each of those Pixies albums have a different sound, but this one, it just like, man, like you don't really hear music like that anymore, like recorded that way, like. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think it's really for a band's lack of trying or anything, but I mean, of course, one part of it is the performance, but another is just like, Albini's method of recording and stuff. And we're lucky we have a lot of information that he kind of left us with. Oh yeah, there was a great little podcast that did an episode on the making of the album with interviews with Albini and was it Joy Santiago and I think David Lovering, the drummer.
Yeah. Dave Lovering, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just those three guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he talks about the different ways he recorded stuff, playing vocals through a guitar amp.
Jesus Christ.
making them rent large amps and playing them, I think, in the bathroom or something, just to get like.
I believe it. Hearing that album, I believe it.
Yeah, that and his other trademark metal guitar picks. So the Pixies were using metal guitar picks on that album, apparently.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up because metal guitar picks. That's a thing that I don't know if you still use them, but I still sure should use them.
Yeah, I got different types. I still use them. I switch between picks and stuff, but I started using those more recently just because I think I found the kind that I really like the feel of.
Which ones are those?
They're actually copper ones, so Albini used the copper ones. I was trying what's the other one? Aluminum. I think they were just too heavy, but I'll use it for bass, something like that.
I think the only metal picks I have, I literally got from you. I never went out bought my own, and I've had the same ones. And I mean this for 15 years.
That's incredible because you know how easily picks get lost.
Yeah, I don't lose picks. It's because when I like something, I tend to try to have it for as long as I can. So every single one, I think I still have. I have two of each, two aluminum or. It's not steel. I'm assuming it's aluminum. Two aluminum, two copper, and I use them both for different, sometimes different moods, but most of the time different because they do sound different when you use them. If I want something a little bit faster and scrapier, I go copper. If I want something bassier and heavier, then I go aluminum.
Yeah. Sounds similar to. Like how I ended up using them.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I still gotta try the other Albini tricks, like his guitar, particularly his big black guitar.
Which one was that?
One was a funny story. You can find all this stuff on either like interviews or the Electrical Audio website that has a list of all the gear. But I think the first guitar he was playing in Big Black was something he traded a Mosrite for. He had one of the original, the Mosrite Ventures guitars.
I feel like I do. I need to look up a photo of it right now. Just
off the bat, most famous user of those probably Johnny Ramone.
Okay,
that was his trademark guitar.
Yeah.
Which he bought for was it like $30 or something?
Jeez, man.
I think when the Ramones first started, he was looking for his signature guitar. He didn't want to use some guitar that like other famous people were using. Mm-hmm. So he found that one. And I think his way of carrying it around was in a shopping bag and not a case.
Johnny Ramone?
Yeah, Johnny Ramone, yeah.
It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. And
how the hell do you even fit it in this? Wait, what?
I don't know.
That's fucking nuts.
There might be a picture of it. I don't remember, but that's interesting to tie that in because I think the Ramones were the band that really kind of got Albini started. That was the one that did it all for him.
Yeah. So you said he traded that.
He had one. He had one of the which those guitars are worth so much now.
Yeah, one just went for almost $1 million at auction.
Oh my god!
930 something thousand.
I didn't know that.
That's a lot. That's insane. That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Before I forget, just remind me about guitars going for a crazy amount. And then Steve Albini, I remember like 15 to 20 years ago, really becoming enamored with Travis Beans, which, he used for most of his career, and being like, oh man, one day I want a Travis Bean, but they're upwards of like $3,000. Now they're fucking 10 to 20,000. And that's how much they went up in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
I think if you try to get, there's, not copies, but like, would they be like replicas? They kind of revived them a bit. I think it was Electrical Guitar Company that did that.
Yeah, I saw a couple.
Those are, I think last time I checked, probably at least 5,000-6,000 each.
I mean, it's still ridiculous, but it's more. I would excuse that, whereas I would not excuse that for a Gibson.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, I think the more viable option is to buy a neck and put it on another body that you have, like a wooden body.
More viable. Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen that going around where you could order necks and stuff, but they're kind of like in demand. So yeah, sometimes they might be back ordered or whatever, depending on who's making them something. But
back to the story. Oh,
the guitar. He traded the guitar for it looked like a Strat copy or like a Stratocaster, but with the pickups wired out of phase. And okay, I'm getting into like gear talk. I don't know how many listeners I'm going to lose, but
I'm vaguely familiar with in phase and out of phase. Despite the fact that I've been playing music since before I could read, I don't fucking know. I'm familiar with the concepts. I don't know exactly what it means.
Well, so this guitar is funny because like a Stratocaster has 3 pickups.
Yeah.
It actually has 2. That's how you get the out of phase sound. It's got to be 2 pickups wired out of phase. And so the middle pickup, what looks like the middle pickup, is actually a battery compartment for like a preamp. But I don't know how big of a factor that was in his sound, because like his other guitar didn't have that in it, as far as I know. But it's so simple. I mean, it's such a simple guitar. And this occurred to me the other day. His gear, he uses a lot of gear that the Grateful Dead uses.
A little ironic, right?
Like when I look it up, the only other users I could find are like the Grateful Dead.
Well, despite the fact that I don't enjoy them, I'm sure there's lots of merit there. Yeah,
I mean, like there's a certain preamp that he used, and then I think the Travis Beans. Yeah, the Travis Beans. Yeah. That's the other main one. But where was I going with the kid? Oh, so yeah, he'd make jokes about trading that guitar and stuff. Like he's not mad about it. I guess he didn't seem mad, but he's like, he doesn't fault the guy for doing the trade or whatever, because he said the guitar that he traded for was probably worth about $300.
Yeah.
And he said it's probably still worth about that much now, but he's like, it's not his fault. I was an idiot.
He's right. I mean, you can get mad for someone ripping you off, but if it's that big of a ripoff and you were like, yeah, I mean, a little bit's your fault. I mean, that's a substantial ripoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked out. It sounds great. The guitar sounds great.
I mean, and I think about that. Like, would he have gotten the same sound if he had the Mo's right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he would have found something. Maybe
I think so. Yeah. Because I've kind of tried not exactly like the same type of guitar, but close enough. And you could sense like, okay, yeah, this is the core of the big black guitar tone, but there's still a little something missing. And I don't know.
The love.
Well, I think a big part is just the way he was playing it. But there's also like this other thing, like, it's not like a chorus. It's not like a delay. I don't know. I haven't really tried the whole amp setup that he had. So I don't know. Could be part of it, but I still have a feeling like it's really down to just like how you're playing it.
Yeah, that's because you can match everything to the fraction of a number, but you're still not the person. You know, the air in the room still isn't the same. The wiring in the walls isn't the same. Not that it's going to impact the fucking sound that much. I'm trying to make a point here, but like, yeah, there's still going to be something there, which is why like it's not threatening to just be like this is exactly what. I made this reference a million times on the pod, like how someone like Josh Homme hides his pedal setup because no, it's mine. But also, are you that like delicate to where you think someone's going to be better than you if they get this tone that you also happen to use? I mean,
or you're
man,
gonna lose the secret sauce or something.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty superstitious at that point.
To me, it reminds me of the whole AI thing.
Oh, how
people
so?
who are like super anti AI art or whatever. But it's kind of like, well, if something you did gets taken, like, you get to be creative and coming up with something else, I guess. I don't know. It's
a very scary notion for many people. Many people who
for a lot of
think.
people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it reminds me of kind of like Y2K or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah. We were old enough for that. You were more clear than I, but I still remember enough of it, which is weird.
Yeah, it was a big false alarm, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. Like, and I don't think it's as bad in all the ways people are saying it is. Like, I don't think the actual art is as bad as they say it is, and I don't think what's the information that's being like reused or that's informing the AI is as bad as people are saying it is. Like how is it going to take credit for? I don't know. I don't get that part.
I would say it's breaking even because there's already a million people stealing shit online anyway. So
yeah, it's breaking even.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Man, how do we get into AIR? Yeah, to the original, trying to find the tone, trying to find the sound.
Oh yeah, like if you lose this one thing you have, then you lose everything kind of attitude.
Yeah, but it also, another thing is that he didn't just have one sound. Like it changed with every band. Like Shellac sounds nothing, guitar-wise, sounds nothing like Big Black.
Yeah, that's true. No, it doesn't. And actually, really, I mean, he's playing different too. Like,
yep.
Like the style of playing is not even remotely like Big Black.
Not even close. He's Mr. Hammer on and pull off in Shellac, whereas Big Black, I'm going to scrape the strings with any piece of metal I can find.
Yeah, and a lot of that you kind of have to listen for too, like what's him and what's like Santiago, I think.
Yeah, I think that gets lost a lot too when people talk about Albini bands. Like Big Black was two guitars. Like that was two guitars. What's he up to these days? Old Santiago.
Oh, he's well, he became a lawyer or whatever.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
But I think he was like representing Touch and Go, I think.
Oh, that makes sense to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Some records time. So we started Bertrand's 8-track tape, which I'm such an idiot. It took me like until a year ago maybe where I realized the name of that CD was a reference to how much he hated CDs. Yeah,
it wasn't super clear to me either right off the bat. Well, because maybe we didn't grow up with 8 tracks.
Yeah, it was a nonsense phrase to me, but that was a thing that I remember because when we were listening to, when you found him, and then me shortly after, it was CDs were not going anywhere. It was like CDs are here to stay, buddy. All right, get with the times. I don't know where your head's at.
Yeah,
he was just the most hatred, so much hatred.
Yeah, he was a little off on some things, I think.
It's funny because CDs are like pretty charming now. Like I still appreciate them. I don't obviously use them much. I don't have many ways to use them, but I quite like to meet them. They don't look as nice behind me on a wall because they're small, but it's like there's something really nice about just picking up a nice brand new CD.
Yeah. I mean, apparently CDs are thriving in Japan. Probably more I forgot where I heard this, but more like people opt for CDs over like streaming or something like that.
Well, it is better, right? Fidelity wise. I mean, technically.
Yeah. But I guess,
Yeah.
like with convenience and all that, people, they choose streaming and stuff.
Guilty. The convenience is, I mean, when you're listening to as many new albums a week as me and Alex do, or as Alex and I do, the convenience is pretty. It's a selling point. That's for damn sure. Even if the companies are really, really gross.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, there was that whole era, like the MP3 blog era, where the quality of that stuff was whatever. But that was the only way you could ever hear something like that.
Yep. It was so many albums I dug through all the old blogs. It's like, oh, I guess this album just sounds like shit. It's like, or maybe it was just that one dude's copy. And oftentimes I would download copies that were skipping on the MP3 file. Yeah. It's like random bullshit like that.
Yeah. I have I was going to say copy. It's not a copy. I have like MP3 album like that. And I think I downloaded it from like at least one other blog, and it was the same one with the same skip.
Yep. Dude, that happened to me so many times where I would find one that was fucked up. Like, oh, I got to find a better one. And then every other one I would find would be the same exact set of songs, same exact copy.
Yeah.
That's what Lars Ulrich warned us about. And we wronged you, we shat on you, and we're sorry, Lars. We are sorry. He was right.
So we're going to make t-shirts saying Lars was right.
Lars was right. He was a cock about it, but he was right.
But I guess maybe like looking into the later years of Albini, he really kind of showed an example of, I guess, the practicality of playing music. Practicality and reality of playing music. I guess, I don't know what I want to say, like for a living, but obviously there's a lot of people that love music and want to play music, but how many are going to really be able to do that? And he kind of showed, I guess the way that could still work, which is basically like, don't get into it trying to make money or whatever. Definitely not.
I think that goes without saying these days, I hope.
Yeah. So like he had his job, electrical audio, and, would record with Shellac whenever. I think like, they'd go maybe like a year or something without any recordings. But then like the album, like it'll have recordings that were done like over the span of like probably more than a couple of years. I guess to kind of, that's like reality right there. When you're working a full-time job, you get together and play when you can. And then the album's released when it's released, there was no like goals, like, we got to put out an album every so often. Like, and people were just really stupid towards him from what I've seen here and there. Like he wasn't releasing enough music, like comparing him to other bands. I'm like, they don't even really realize what it's like. Like, I'm not saying I know, but I kind of do know because I'm still playing music. I'm still making music. Like after everybody practically who I grew up with quit, they just let it go. Yeah. But I still, that's just what I am or who I am. But it's not like paying the bills. It's not, it's not going to do any of that. But it doesn't mean you have to quit. It doesn't mean you have to stop,
Yeah. Are you doing it because you like doing it? Or are you doing it because you want some idealized end result or something? It's people who like, I don't know. It's just people who idealize in general. It's like the people that I trust, and I heavy air quotes with that when it comes to music and art, is if they've tried to quit, but they couldn't. Those are the people I trust, because I've been there. When you try to quit, and you cannot.
Who did quit and then came back or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Who would that be? I feel like no. I was gonna say Swans, but I don't. Michael Jarrell was probably doing other stuff. I think he had other projects.
Angel Light, yeah, he was doing stuff. I don't mean like necessarily like where like they take this long gap, or at least like where you need a break. You decide you need a break. You know it's hurting you. It's not viable. You want to like try something else because it's so difficult. But when things are quiet, you find yourself itching or noodling on something. You're like, oh, that's nice. Maybe I'll play with that. It's a tick, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought of it like a tick. Yeah. It's kind of like a tick. Like, it feels weird, like going too long without doing it. And then like, well, I gotta do something. And then you do something. And then like, it just kind of snowballs from there or whatever. Next thing you know, you're making something.
Yep. Just comes out.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about just like his production work. I mean, that's kind of like, I spent a lot of time talking about like, the famous guitar tone and all that stuff. But, after getting the news and everything, that kind of like, it wasn't the thing I was thinking about. The thing that I was thinking about was just kind of the effect he had on other musicians and what he did to help them, and his sound that kind of went through other artists and all that,
Oh yeah.
So I was sitting with like Surfer Rosa for like a week or whatever, just listening to that and like man, like what a great sound. Like I never really thought of that as a great sounding album, but I didn't really I didn't feel like I needed to go through like any other albums or whatever. It was just like kind of that one that I was like fixated on and just kind of sitting with.
That's a special one. Like, I mean, we talk about doing the Pixies all the time. We'll probably do the Pixies at some point, not too far from now. But I mean, that's my favorite one. I mean, it's not even close. It's always been my favorite for many years. There's something really. It seems bold when I think about it. Just obvious, the most famous song in the fucking world. Where's my mind? It's not about the song, about the way that acoustic guitar is recorded, where it just sounds like it's barely recorded. It sounds like it's ambiently recorded. Yet it's like the driving rhythm of the whole song.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's such an odd choice, but it feels so right.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like I think of also the vocals on Something Against You. I think that was the one I didn't know it was like, okay, obviously now that I found out, it's through a guitar amp, but I didn't know that like all those years listening to it. I just thought it was like, I don't know what, in some weird chamber or some weird room or whatever. But like hearing that it was like a guitar amp kind of makes it funnier. But
yeah. Also, I think Brick is Red is one of the most underrated songs of like the entire era. When people talk about the Pixies in there, I've never heard anybody reference Brick is Red. It's insane. It's like it's a perfect song. I hear people downplay or like kind of minimize the songs on the second half. And that was one of the things too, is like, man, I really like kind of overlooked the second half. The songs they're all good. They're all good songs, and people kind of, I mean, I guess the people that aren't that into it, I think it's a little more patchy or something, but yeah, I don't know. It just really struck me as a stronger album. And it's funny because like that's the album that was kind of like, I don't know, his like almost like his epitaph or whatever to me. And it was an album that not the album, I don't know about the album, but the band himself, he just trashed and badmouthed like horribly. Like I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really tore into them.
And I don't even think like I don't think he was really, you hear the stories about when he recorded Fugazi, and then you compare that to like his attitude towards the Pixies at the time, where like, when I think of the Fugazi story, like, it was kind of like they made it sound like it was such a great session or sessions that they had. Like everything was going so great, and then when they listened to the results, they basically concluded it was unusable. But like,
yeah,
I'm listening to the results of like Surfer Rosa and then having like the opposite conclusion where it's like, oh man, he probably didn't like care at all when he was recording them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'll put this mic here. Like, I mean, not that he was doing it putting the mics randomly, but I guess it didn't have that preciousness or something. I don't know.
Yeah. There was more room to experiment instead of wanting to make a good impression or wanting to get the best sound possible and putting, I don't know, that sort of invisible layer of pressure.
Yeah. And he hated this, but I kind of liked it when he inserted his little ideas, like including snippets of like conversation or whatever at the start of a song.
Oh, it was his.
Yeah. He's like, he kind of told them, oh, do this weird thing or whatever. And then I guess he kind of, maybe that was the closest he ever got to being a producer. But there was a couple others I think he did that on. But then I think he kind of cringed at it like later on and then took a like 100% hands-off approach after that.
Definitely. Yes. Complete. It's interesting. I didn't know those were his idea. I forget those are even on the album. I mean, little charming little intros, ambient conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he was a funny guy, you know? So I feel like his humor was coming out in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was forgetting about the humor a lot somehow. And then we just did Shellac last week. And yeah, being reminded of like, oh man, these lyrics are great. These are some of my favorite lyrics. He might be one of my favorite lyricists ever. It's crazy. They're just so fun. The
topics. He's got good topics.
Yeah, wow. Good topics. Just all over the map topics. Clever wordplay. Not even clever wordplay in the sense that like a Kurt Cobain where it's, everything's little, witty little lines here and there, but just like funny phrasing of things, phrasing things in a way that seems funny, or just the entirety of Watch Song, which I'll never stop gushing about because it's the funniest fucking thing. And then the lyrics, the way they flow and the way they're written are actually spectacular.
You know what? I got to spend more time with the Shellac lyrics.
They're fun. They're real.
Yeah. I never really did a deep dive on them. Well, what album do you think has the best lyrics?
I never thought about comparing all the lyrics to the albums. It's got to be 1000 Hertz. They're so varied. They're devastating, heartbreaking to fucking hilarious, and then just nonsense like New Number Order, where it's creating a new number order. It's just little goofy things like that. It's fun as hell. Plus, you get like the really messed up, sad stuff like Prayer to God and stuff. But it's great. I think it's great. Any other albums you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, well, I don't know about albums, but because I didn't really go back to the albums like that he did like in his own band so much, but I did watch a live show that he did with Rapeman, and
oh wow,
just man, just an insanely good band.
Thinking about that band actually makes me sad because of how good they were in their tiny little existence and how just everybody was so spectacular. It was a fucking super group.
Yeah. I saw this post on Instagram. Somebody, I think it was Brian Walsby, the artist who he did a lot of stuff for the Melvins, like kind of like cartoony stuff, music jokes kind of thing. Like I think he did a cartoon on like that famous Nick Cave quote on the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like he actually did
one of my favorite quotes of all time.
Yeah, he'll do like like the Mothers of Invention Freak Out album cover, but it's the Melvins, like instead of like Zappa or whatever.
Okay.
Little things like that. But he did a drawing of Rapeman, and I'm pretty sure it was him that said it. He said that they were one of the top 3 shows he ever saw in his life. And
damn, I think
that's what made me look up the live footage. It was a show I think they did in England, but I mean, I liked it better than the album maybe.
Oh wow.
Just seeing the live footage. Something about seeing a good drummer live, like rather than on record.
fucking, I'm grateful I got to see him with Scratch Acid during their reunion some, million years ago.
Yeah.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, man, I don't know if I'll get that chance again. Yeah, I missed it, but I mean, I guess Jesus Lizard are back.
you have the chance to see Jesus Lizard. I don't have quite as good of a chance anymore, but you do have that chance. I think they already
played here.
What?
I think they already played here.
No, next year in May 2025. The tickets are probably on sale already, or maybe they're already sold out. I don't know, but
yeah, I really was thinking of, because I don't know, for me, like the whole Albini thing was really just like that guitar tone, but then after he passed, I was thinking about the whole, like, his effect on the sound of like groups as a whole.
Yeah, especially doing this pod, you encounter just how like, oh, he did that one too, I guess. Like random ass shit. I mean, we did a whole episode on Silkworm and he was heavily involved with that band. It just never came up before the episode, that entire band. And then random shit like Burning Witch, where he did their first EP and it sounds just amazing. It's him doing this black metal band. And then he did a bunch of Neurosis albums, which I completely forgot about. And I didn't put it together until way too late. I was like, man, this record sounds better than any other metal record I've ever heard. Why does it sound like, oh, okay, that's why.
Oh, the record he did with Tad sounded really good. I remember that one.
What was that? God's Balls or something?
It might have been, no. It was, Salt Lick, I think.
So on here it says Salt Lick and God's Balls, but I think that's a comp.
They paired them together.
Okay.
Maybe it did both though.
Yeah, no. I think you're probably right, because it's also crediting Jack and Dino.
Oh yeah, Jack and Dino. Yeah, I think he did God's Balls.
Okay, so Salt Lick.
Yeah,
I
know.
Never heard it. I've only heard 8-Way Santa.
Yeah, it's good. And that was like, but before I knew he did it, one of those things.
Oh yeah,
similar thing. Like, yeah, it just seemed really heavy. Like, I mean, maybe you think of Albini as more of a noisy guy than a heavy guy.
Yeah, but you definitely do. But boy, does those heavy records sound so good. Like I ended up, I said this on the Burning Witch episode, where now I'm just mad that no other metal band has that sound, because why would they not have the most lively giant drums instead of just compressing the shit of everything and making the fucking kick drum sound like it's smacking meat, and like all the whatever tropes that they do where they crank the mids on. There's all kinds of little metal things that every band does. It's like, have you heard this one? Don't you think that sounds a little better? Do you maybe?
Was that the whole Injustice for All drum sound?
Oh, basically.
So
yeah,
I think the kick drum wasn't. I haven't heard it in a long time, but I think I remember it sounding very like clicky, like. Yeah, not a very deep or heavy sound, I think.
No, it's a very on this. I don't want to. When I say on the surface, I know it's a deep musical album. I mean, like the production style feels very surface level, where you're not hearing a lot of space in there. You're not hearing any space between instruments. You're hearing guitar and drums. That's basically what you're hearing the entire time. It doesn't even sound like two guitars. It sounds like one guitar, but it is still a cool album.
Well, I was curious about you, and like, I don't know how you responded to the news, and I don't know, you said you couldn't listen to the music either for a while. I don't know if listening to Surfer Rosa was my indirect way of trying to listen to him without having to like directly listen to him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had anything.
Definitely. I was avoiding it like hardcore. Every time a song would come on and shuffle or something, just nope, not ready. Yeah, I really didn't want to. When I got the news, it was just fucking devastating. I mean, oh man, I was like, no. I mean, come on, anybody else, take anyone, my father, take anyone, just stop. No, not literally. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Goddamn it. But it just. It was a kick in the balls. Because I mean, there's always like, if you play music and you're a fan of Albini, there's always this lingering thing of like, well, one day I could probably save up enough money. It's not like you need to know people. You just fucking book time. He's like a goddamn plumber, and always wanted to record with a guy. But it's just like, all right, well, that sucks. But also everything else, like I said before doing this pod, like you just bump into him every other corner. So it ends up just kind of a thing that you can't really avoid for that long. I realized, especially when you do a pod like this, it's going to keep happening. So fuck it. Let's just do Shellac. Let's listen to all of it. Let's dive deep in. Let's get sad. Let's do it all. So going back into Shellac, it was super fun. I mean, I love those albums. And I was able to listen to them the same way I would any other band that I like, and taking notes, having my, getting my opinions on everything. But then the last album came, and I talked about it more on the episode, but I was enjoying it. For one, everything that I liked about it made me more sad. Everything that I was like, oh, this is a lot better than what they've done in a while, made me more sad. And by the time the final song ended, which was a great closer, I was straight depressed. Like this, the discography is over, the band is over, he is gone. God damn it! It was like a legitimate all right, I gotta bounce back from this. It was like a full grieving process listening to all the Shellac albums like that.
Yeah, I agree. But like the last song, I thought it was interesting. He kind of left off on a very distinctive trademark chord of his.
I remember the main riff is stuck in my head forever, but I don't remember the exact last chord.
Yeah, it's like this really like ugly kind of like bendy like chord, very kind of expressive in a weird odd way.
That's one thing that was so great about that whole album is his guitar playing and his guitar tone. In my opinion, is better than it had been since 1000 Hertz. So I was like, oh, it's so good now. Oh no. Cause it's like the first time it's the loudest and buzziest it's been in forever. Which is the thing that I miss. And not only that, it's super bendy and weird sounding. He's doing all this stuff that he's never done before. And it was just really interesting. And there were fun songs. And the whole thing was like fucking 28 minutes. It's like a really, really good, succinct album. I almost wanted it to suck just so I wouldn't feel sad by the end of it.
Yeah. And that's kind of like one of those things that how I was talking about, like the reality of like playing music while trying to like, make a living for yourself. They spent how many years was it? And the album's like only like 20 minutes.
Spent 10 years. It was 10 years since the last album and it's 28 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's certain things like that where Tom on his podcast, he goes like his main thing is that he likes talking to the most underground, more indie, the most DIY types of musicians. He can get bigger people that are like a little bit higher up, but it's not quite as interesting. Like when I hear about when I have heard about like when they ask the greats or whatever, what advice would you give to new musicians? It's the most worthless dog shit advice you'll ever hear. Like, all right, well, you start a band with your friends in your garage, and you take yourself to the local record store and you get yourself a record deal. It's like, it's fucking hilariously dated. Like, was it Faith No More, which I believe they got signed because I think it was Billy Gould. He recorded a demo with the band. He knew a guy at a record store. He said, hey, put on the record whenever you see customers there. And then he does. And then one of the people shopping was some record executive. And they're just like, oh, who is this band? I have to sign them. Like, it's like, that doesn't happen anymore. No. That's not going to happen for a while.
It's because, you can get your music out anywhere now, but so can everybody else. So
yeah, exactly. So Tom talks to all these people and it's become this what's a better, less annoying way to say snowflake? That's not derogatory. It's like a
wet blanket.
It's I don't know. No, snowflake is in like completely unique. The original term for snowflake. Like not the derogatory. I mean, I just mean like what I'm trying to say is that everybody has their own super unique way of doing things. So yeah, like they're always like,
their
hundreds and thousands. There we go. Fingerprint. I'm a fucking moron. Jesus Christ. Fingerprint. Everyone has their own fingerprint. So everyone has this wild origin story. Like one person like, oh, I started doing visual art and then somehow I met this guy at this gallery and then we started a band. It's like, that's a fucking random ass way to end up making. And
that's almost my story, except it was at the school, not the gallery.
There it is. It's so everyone has this like random ass thing because it's so far from a template of how to make music and survive. It's so far from like with the internet and like basically the lottery that it's turned into of like, maybe someone will hear your music. It's just fucking try whatever. Maybe that's what it's become. Yeah. And his is like very much like, well, don't quit your job. Try to like what you do, but don't quit your job. I mean, just, but also don't quit doing the thing you love.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a video that, I think, Albini's wife posted of Albini kind of encouraging a young drummer, which sums it up better than I could like ever say, but it's kind of like, you know, kind of giving a little breakdown on like, you know, you have talent and stuff, and music can be something that you like enjoy and love and not have to stop playing for the rest of your life. And then I think he was relating it just to other musicians that he worked with that kind of had their own vulnerabilities and was just kind of, you know, maybe demystifying a lot of the whole rock star persona or perceptions of what it's like to play music, you know? Like, yeah. It's not a glamorous thing, I guess.
Really, like, I mean, at least my favorite artist, it's far from it. And that's another very nice thing about him is the humility, for the most part. I mean, the guy seemed like he had almost like a lethal reaction to things going to his head.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like I mentioned about cringing at some of his past remarks or
yeah,
or whatever.
He definitely was like lamenting a lot of his past remarks. I don't think are that bad. I think are pretty justifiable and hold up. Although I haven't read them all, but
I think he went maybe a little overboard with I don't know if I'd say he just went like directly like apologizing all the time, but you do get the sense that he was kind of maybe over explaining himself or
a little bit. I didn't learn this until this is completely unrelated, except for David Yao. I had no idea he was in Flipper.
David Yao?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was recently
singing for Flipper.
I think he played bass for like a brief period as well,
really?
Bass and vocals, and then moved over to just vocals.
Oh, I didn't know about the bass.
Flipper just became the band where everyone great just hops in and out because right now Mike Watson there and he's the best.
Yeah.
What the hell? They lose the original guys and they replace them with the greatest people ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember David Yao talking about singing with them and he seems so excited about it. Like just being able to sing Sacrifice on stage. Like,
oh, that's great. I'd love to see his version of it.
Yeah.
Slurring.
I know. I think even that was a while ago too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to know that they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Old Ted Falcone, the guy with 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah. Oh man. Even I remember when I got like my first Flipper CD, just looking in the booklet at the photos of them and seeing him, and it's like, what is the story behind this guy?
Was he in Nam?
Yeah, I think he was.
Okay.
I think he was in Nam, and I remember a story where, because they're all like very heavy drug users, a story where he took so much speed he took apart a car motor and put it back together again.
It's fucking insane. Why?
Oh man, one of the greatest guitar players still, like, but who will agree with me on that?
Dude, first of all, Buzz Osborne would agree with you on that. Check out our interview with Buzz. And I'm excited to cover Flipper at some point. I mean, that's just one of those one of those goddamn bands.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you have to have a certain sense of humor in order to have fun, I guess, listening to them.
Yeah, I suppose so. I still think the songs hold up, and it's hard to deny a lot of those bass lines. You got to be crazy, but
oh yeah, I remember. Was it our cousin's boyfriend kind of talking about them, but in the sense that they were very bleak.
Bleak.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, there's some bleakness there, but maybe it's like just a dark humor or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
that
I mean,
stuff makes me happy.
Well, they wrote Life, you know. It's like think
Life
of
is the only thing worth living for.
Yeah, if you think about like the character of those guys, but they wrote something like Life, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there's like a light at the end or something.
I think maybe. But now that we've moved on from Steve Albini to Flipper somehow, it's still.
I'd say they're a band like Flipper would probably be more in line with Albini's side of punk than a lot of the other straight ahead hardcore punk bands or whatever.
Easily. That's another thing about Big Black that I don't even remember talking about, because we did the Big Black episode so long ago. I forgot what we talked about, but how that was during the hardcore days, and that even though they were punk in all the loose definitions of it, it is not punk in what people think of when they think of punk music. So I don't know how that, like, where the hell they played or who they played with. I would imagine Butthole Surfers, Flipper, like those are the bands that I think of like, all right, well, they don't fit, so they had to fit there in a way. Like, where the fuck did they go?
Well, I heard that Big Black was not well received in Chicago. So it was like,
isn't that ironic?
Yeah, their shows were not either like not big, or they didn't really get a lot of shows. I forgot what other cities, but a lot of like, I think, if you look at, I'm just remembering the Rapeman stuff. I think there's this club called the Rat. Where was that? I think it was in Boston, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they might have played the Rat a lot, and they were able to go to England, apparently. So, and I think the shows in England or probably around Europe, I think those might have had the biggest crowds that they ever had. Then they come back to Chicago or whatever, and it's just like they're nobody's stuff.
Gee, that's depressing. Yeah, I've heard that a similar story. What is it with Europe just getting it better than a lot of the US?
I don't know. I was thinking of that. I think literally today, like how Jimi Hendrix and Nirvana kind of had like a good start off in England, and then when they came back here, they seemed to, I guess, kind of launch their careers somehow. I don't know.
It's just fascinating. The same thing with Sparks. I mean, they're failing. They failed so bad that they changed the band name, and then they just decided to try England, and all of a sudden it worked because they were great the whole time.
Yeah. That was back in the days where I think labels kind of let their artists grow a bit just before like dropping them or whatever. So I think they had like 2 albums under their belt already before like the third one. I think the third one was I think they actually had a hit on there. I think.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where. I don't know if it was in America if they had a hit.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, but that's all a bygone era.
Indeed. But it has been nice chatting about the legacy of the old Albini and hearing all the places that we go when we think about why we're so sad and why this is like the one of the most important motherfuckers for so many, just surprisingly so many different reasons. Because it could just be about the bands. It could have just been Big Black. For a lot of people, I bet it would just be Big Black. And then, god damn, you go into the pure pure love he has of recording and experimenting with mics and talking about gear. Like it was infrequent, but the Electrical Audio YouTube channel, when they put out a video talking about gear, a week before he died, I was watching one and I was like super jazzed. Him talking about this fucking random ass obscure amplifier that I have no interest in. It was an interesting video because you see someone passionate explaining to you in depth how this thing works. The man loved his job.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had some of that info a little bit earlier, because his video on like miking a guitar cabinet just simplified everything so much for me. After just reading so much stuff on the internet, but then like just to hear him kind of break it down, it just like it was good that he kind of had this opinion that broke with a lot of other recording engineers' techniques, like how to mic it, like what angle to place the mic and everything. He's just like, you just place it on the center or whatever. He kind of explained why. And yeah, I wish I knew that, because if it's that simple, oh yeah, just make sure it's pointed at the center, then you don't have to worry about all the extra EQing stuff you could possibly get by angling the mic and all that stuff, which is what I spent a lot of time doing, which kind of, like running on a hamster wheel or something. But
yeah, it's like, it's so lacking in pretension too. Just like, yeah, you want to hear how it sounds in the room, right? Well, then put it right there where it would sound like, why, and another, I would say classic of his, like, why are you putting the fucking thing to the side and angling like that? They're doing that on stage to save space. You're in a studio, put it right here. This is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Yeah. Or like, oh man, I mean, there's probably a lot you could say about, when he first started recording bands. He was doing it in his house. And I think, he was sharing it, I think, with who is now his wife. And they're like that's like living in a studio or whatever. I think they had stuff in the kitchen and like all, whatever you could imagine it would be like recording in a house. But there's a good video that some guy did as a project where he interviewed him during that time. And there's this moment that I love where, because he's demonstrating the ambience of different rooms. Like there's a dead room. There's a room that's more, it's got more reverb in it, more, I guess like more reverberations or whatever.
Yeah.
The live room or whatever. I think they call it a live room and a dead room. Mm-hmm. Dead room would be like a very dry sound. And I think it was like in the dead room where, the walls are covered with material so that the sound doesn't bounce off. And the guy asks him, like, look, what is this material that you have on the walls? And then he just very like matter of factly just says cloth.
I see no better way to possibly end this episode than with that.
That's exactly right. It's cloth.
100%. That is exactly. This has been very cathartic and therapeutic, and it's what we need. I know it's a lot of what our fans have needed since this happened. Like just talk about all this shit, get it all out. It sucks, but he will always be here. He will always be here. So thank you for joining me, of course, and talking as well. Plug away.
Oh, well, yeah, you could hear Albini type of stuff, anything related to that. A lot of the weird, like underground stuff that he recorded or was friends with. He was friends with a lot of bands from Japan. I play that stuff that you can't really find on other streaming platforms. That's all on NTS Radio, the Athenian Marketplace.
Hell yeah. So go there, check that out. One last thing. I almost forgot. I would have been so mad if I forgot this. You had a few tracks from an Albini project that I have not been able to place. I have no idea where they came from. There were two songs, I think. One of them became The Guy Who Invented Fire from Shellac, and there was another one that I never heard again. What were those songs?
I know what you're talking about. That was him playing with, I believe it was KK Null from the band Zenigeva from Japan.
Never would have found that.
Oh yeah. He was a huge fan of Zenigeva. And I think he recorded some of their albums too. He must have. I mean, he recorded like Melt Banana and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're trying to wrap it up, but there was also another funny story where people were trying to emulate his sound with the guitar pedal called the harmonic percolator. And some guy built a clone and sent it to him, and he thought it was just like completely unusable. And he said, like, although I do have some friends in Japan that might find it useful.
Oh, goddamn.
Pointing to the noise scene over there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm at ease now because that was, I was thinking about that for a while. Because
those tracks, yeah, I think they were part of a compilation. They might have been a Japanese compilation. I think it was called Bad Sun Rising. Maybe it's on one of those ones. There's like 2 of them. I'll have to dig it up. I'll let you know.
Yeah, because I gotta say, as much as I love the guy who invented fire, it's fucking 2 minutes, and I'm begging for more. That version, it was much longer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is pretty short, like the way how it ended up.
Yeah, and the other one never got reused for anything, and that one was really good too. Okay, now finally going to wrap it up. It's been a very, very nice time. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching all this stuff. It's been a long episode, I'm certain, but yeah, this is good stuff. We'll be back next week with another big discography, another big anticipated discography for us. It's a very good one. I'm very excited. A lot of fun, and there was a giant long episode. But until then, you know what to do. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/everyalbumever. That's where you go. Bonus episodes. I don't even feel like plugging. All right, just go there. There's a bunch of stuff. You can request episodes. We've gotten some. I'm really excited about some of these requests. These fans of ours are getting cooler, requesting bands that no one. I didn't think I'd meet people who know these bands, and they're asking us to talk about them, which makes me very happy. Yeah, so go there, do that. Follow me on all social media at PanderMonkey. Alex on Instagram at EveryAlbumAlex. Tom at Tom Osman Sounds. I'm sure he already plugged his stuff already. And Robert at hoodpass.wick. So go check out all this stuff. It's fun. It's cool. Okay, we're going to go now. But yeah, I asked Tom to pick a final song because he's never been on the pod with us and he's never picked a song. So you're going to hear that now. Thank you so much. See ya.